Welcome to the Witness Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Trader, and this is episode 13. Sometimes God tells us things about ourselves that we have a hard time believing. Now, he may not actually be talking to us the way you and I understand talking, but we find ourselves in a situation that we feel we aren't really cut out for. Maybe we take a job that we are unqualified for. Maybe we are saddled with circumstances that seem overwhelming and we're sure we can't handle them. In Judges 6, the Israelites are constantly being attacked by this band of marauders called the Midianites. Every time the Israelites plant a crop, every time they're ready to reap a harvest, the Midianites come down and sweep it all away. They steal all the crops, they plunder the livestock, and they make away with all of it, and the Israelites are left with nothing. And the Israelites become so terrified by this that they wind up carving out little hiding places and caves and places and things like that. And there's this guy Gideon who is like hiding behind a wine press. And I'm wondering if you've ever been in a time in your life where you ever feel like just curling up into a ball and hiding until everything stops, until it's all over? Well, that's Gideon. One day he's hiding behind this wine press. And in verse 12, we find Gideon having this conversation with God in Judges 6 and verse 12. This angel shows up and says, "The Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor." Now, this doesn't really sit well with Gideon. So he replies in verse 13, "Oh, my Lord, if the Lord be with us, then why is all this happening? And where are all of his miracles which our fathers told us about, saying, didn't the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites." I'll bet a lot of us feel like we can relate to Gideon in this passage. You look around and you can't find anything really right about your situation. You're really just confused about how and why all of this is happening to you, especially if you've just been trying to live and do the best you can. My next witness is someone who has certainly been able to relate to those feelings throughout his life. At times, it was like life was sending a tidal wave to overcome him and wash him out. But you will also see and hear how God in his grace gave him just what he needed to make it through, and how each challenge that he faced was preparing him for the road ahead. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to call to the stand today Randy Dulin.
Will you tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Randy Dulin, welcome to the Witness Podcast, man. I want to thank you for coming out and being a part of this tonight.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. This kind of threw me off a little bit because I thought I was going to get to hear your cool intro, but I guess you record that later.
Oh, yeah. I do that separately. Sorry. Now you've let the cat out of the bag.
I thought I was going to be sitting here for a couple minutes, but I guess not.
Sorry, man. So, yeah, man, I just want to thank you for coming out here, and I guess we can just get right into it. Just a brief introduction. Randy is, we've talked a few times about the different congregations that Antioch has. Randy is a member of the Antioch West congregation. Antioch, the Apostolic Church, is broken up into Antioch Central, Antioch North, and Antioch West. Randy attends Antioch West, but he actually grew up, 15, 20 years ago. Antioch, the Apostolic Church, was just one congregation, and Randy actually grew up with my brother, so I've known him for pretty much his whole life and a large part of mine, so we go back a good ways. So welcome, Randy, again.
Thanks, man. So I guess we're going to get into my testimony, I guess.
Yeah, and we can just start from the top, man. I mean,
Yeah.
Where were you born? Where were you raised?
Well, I was born in Annapolis at Anne Arundel Medical Center. Grew up around here, like Millersville, Glen Burnie. When I was younger, I was a dirty sinner, just like everybody else, man. I lied. I fought people. I did all kinds of things. And then God saved me when I was 7 years old, dude. And it's just been coasting ever since.
So Randy does have the distinction of he's probably the first person I've had on who actually was raised in this church and never strayed, at least not for a very long period of time. I mean, you know, my testimony was that I was raised here, but I left for quite some time and then found my way back, and you know, most of the other people were saved from a life of sin, if you want to put it that way. But you've actually stuck it out the whole time, man, for the most part.
Yeah. Cal Ripken just keeps showing up.
That's
you know?
right. That's right, man. That's right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've been coming to Antioch my whole life. I feel like for at least when I was younger, I feel like I spent most of my life here, you know, literally.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, you go to church here, and, you know, back then it was Sunday morning, Sunday night, Thursday night. At some point it switched to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, sometimes Wednesday. Right. And sometimes it was just every
And then
week.
we went to school here too. So.
Yeah. And my mom did like the before and after care. Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes I would get to the building at like 7 a.m. and not leave till, you know, 10 or 11 o'clock at night. You know, because Bishop would do that. You know, if you want to leave, you can leave. The rest of us are going to pray.
Right.
Like,
well, I mean, I know that, like, I was thinking about this the other day when I used to go to school here, and I was on the basketball team for a short time. On Thursdays, we would get here in the morning for school, go to basketball practice after school, and then go to church. I never left. I would get here 8:30 in the morning and be here till 9 or 10 o'clock on a Thursday night because of basketball.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So you know, when I was younger, I mean, it felt like I basically lived here. But like I said, I got baptized when I was 7 years old. I was one of those kids that, like, at least at Antioch, with the kids I grew up with, the thing to do was at worship time, you went down front, danced. Everybody did that same like 2-step dance.
Right.
And then they would do like prayer for needs or whatever. And you would go up and you pray to get the Holy Ghost. And then it was kind of like almost a competition to see who would stay up there the longest, you know, and, you know, pray that you got it and whatever. And I remember when I was 7, Judy Gross, I don't know what her last name is.
Judy Hunt now.
Hunt, yeah. I remember her praying for me, and other people were there. I don't remember who, but I remember her. And they told me that I got it, that I was speaking in tongues. And I was like, are you sure? Because I didn't hear it.
You didn't realize it?
I didn't hear it.
Wow.
And they said, yeah, you definitely got it. And I was like, okay, awesome. Well, that's great. And so Bishop Wright, who was Pastor Wright at the time, he baptized me. It was kind of funny. They asked me who I wanted to have baptize me, and I was like, "What? I mean, we'll have Bishop do it. I mean, like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, go for the top. Man.
Yeah, like, I mean, come on." And so actually, I have a picture of him baptizing me, and it's kind of funny because he says he heard me speak in tongues too when he baptized me. Again, I was taking his word for it. I don't know. I didn't hear myself speak in tongues until I was 9.
No kidding.
Yeah. And then, you know, once I turned 9, like a lot of stuff really kind of started kicking in for me when I was 9. I don't know why. It's just we were having a lot of church, and, you know, once I got the Holy Ghost, I wasn't allowed to bring toys to church. I could only read my Bible. So
when you were 9, that was roughly 92?
96.
Aren't you Paul's age?
No.
Oh, sorry. You palled around with Paul. I thought you were his age.
I didn't actually. Well, actually, yeah, when I was younger, but I'm not sure. Honestly, I think that
Well,
had more to do with you guys driving
I-
me to and from school.
I remember your family coming to our house, and then we would, we went to care group at your parents' house for a while. So
Yeah, as an aside, I was scared of you when I was a kid.
really,
Yeah, because I saw how you and Chris Knotts were, or I think
Mike
Knotts, how you guys were with Paul. And I was just like, I don't want anything to do with those guys.
we were good big brothers, man.
I mean, I guess that's what you would call it now. Back then, I was just like, well, they're in the basement, so I'm staying up here.
Nice.
But when I was 9, I don't know, like there was a lot of stuff going on, like at Antioch. And I don't remember the time frames. I mean, it was 96, so I don't know who was here during that time. I don't remember all that. But there was like several like really key things that happened for me when I was that age. I started speaking in tongues, or at least, that I heard, and then I had this really interesting experience with Jesus, actually in the prayer room, in the part of the building that fell down. Since we're at the church, because the church and the school are the same building, and so
Right.
I'd be there every single day. I don't know, you get tired of being in the same spot every day, so they would let me go to the prayer room, and I would go in there and pray or read my Bible or whatever. And I remember when I was in there one of these times, I was reading the scripture where it says, there's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. And I don't know why this clicked for me, but I was like, well, I wouldn't pray fancy, or I wouldn't talk fancy to my brother. I would talk to him normal. So I probably should just talk to Jesus normal. And because I've been trying to, this is a reference not many people will get. I was trying to imitate Brother Shaughnessy.
Yeah, he's a classic. We all refer to him, man.
Yeah, and he would be praying stuff. And
He was very eloquent.
and full of words. He's the only person I've heard say propitiation, and they weren't just reading the scripture, And so I remember, I started praying. I just started talking to Jesus like a normal, like the way I would talk normal. And I remember it was just like this, feeling of revelation. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, that's powerful.
This is God. And I was pacing back and forth in that prayer room, and I was like, oh God, this is so cool. I realized you're my friend, and I could just talk to you, or however I would have said that when I was 9. And I was so pumped about it, and was pacing back and forth praying. And then and I was just completely focused on that prayer. And at some point, I checked to see what time it was, and realized I had to go to school. And when I stopped, I saw Lori Alders was also in the prayer room.
Nice.
And I got really embarrassed.
That's powerful, though, man. That's a great revelation to get when you're 9.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then it was around that time that this timeline could end up getting screwed up if I'm wrong. But your sister broke her leg around that time too.
Which one?
Heidi.
In 96?
I think it was 96. I don't know if it was 96.
I don't know. I don't remember. Yeah. I know that I left in 97.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't really remember Heidi breaking her leg. So it may have been later in 97.
The look you've been giving me is I'm starting to question myself, but we were in school together, and she had broken her leg and was in a cast. And I remember we had one of those crazy church services where it was, late and everybody was praying, and, it was all this powerful stuff. And I know I got touched by God that night. And then I woke up the next morning, and I went and saw Heidi, and I was like, hey, God told me he's going to heal your leg in a week. And she was like, oh, okay. And I went and told your mom too. I was like, hey, just so you know, God told me that he's going to heal Heidi's leg in a week. And it turned out that Heidi's had a follow-up appointment 2 weeks from then. And so, I was just every day I was like, yeah, it's going to be healed. When you go see him, it's going to be healed, and it was just real matter of fact. It was it wasn't I was nervous about it. It was just somebody told me, and so I was just telling you,
That's that childlike faith, man.
Yeah. And so excuse me. And so that came around, and she went to see the doctor, and she told me the next day, they was like, yeah, like it's all healed. Like it's all put back together. Like she was like, I was supposed to be in the cast for, I don't know, 12 weeks or whatever it was.
No kidding.
Like it was a crazy break. At least that's how I remember it. And so like that happened. And then I had another same general time frame. There was a time where I was praying, and I was on the ground praying like in the corner. And while I was praying, somebody came over and took my hand, and we were praying, and I don't know. It's like I would hesitate to say it was intercessory prayer or anything like that, but it was kind of intense. But there was somebody that was right there holding my hand, praying with me, and it was really powerful. And then when I was done, I opened my eyes, and there was nobody there.
Wow,
and
man,
it was
that's amazing.
It was really cool, And so I had at an early age, I had several experiences with Jesus that were mine. It
really
wasn't
profound.
It wasn't like, my parents telling me about, Jesus can do this, or God does this, or we do this, or, whatever. It was all stuff that I got to find out for myself. And so it really kind of put some of that kind of stuff to bed for me pretty early, Yeah, it did. And
That was always a thing for me. No matter how far out there I ever got, I never got so far that I was ever able to deny the realness because of things that had happened to me when I was younger as well.
Yeah, Chester Spriggs will appreciate what I'm about to say, but there's a song that's the chorus of it says, "Where else could I go?"
Right.
And there was several times where life got kind of hard, and it would just be like, this just doesn't feel worth it at all. But where else can I?
What are you
go?
gonna do?
Yeah, like where else? What I mean, if it stinks here, I can't imagine how it would be if I didn't have God to lean on.
Right now you're talking about your 10, 11, 12-year-old years. You were never tempted by worldly temptations, I guess, drinking and drugs and all of that?
No. For different reasons though. I mean, when I was a little kid, everybody thought I was like this goody two shoes, did nothing wrong kind of thing. So nobody even bothered asking me. When I was in high school, I remember stuff would get passed around and they would just skip me. Yeah. Like even in college, I went to college, like they would put the flyers for the clubs in the parties and everything, put it in everybody's car except mine. It was just like, it's not even worth asking Randy. I'm not going to waste the paper on this guy. But no,
that's a good reputation to have, man.
Yeah, I guess it was. Yeah, I could think of ones that have been more fun, but
oh yeah, sure.
I just lost my train of thought. Oh, so when I was 11, this is kind of bizarre. I was a weird kid. When I think back on it, there's like stuff that I'm like, I'm proud of it, but in the time, like that had to have been weird for people. But when I was 11 years old, I was going to Sunday school, and it just so happened the Sunday school class I was in, nobody wanted to be there. Everybody hated it. I'm not going to say the name of the Sunday school teacher. Nobody liked it. And I don't even remember if it was her fault. Cause like, I remember, I'll say his name cause he was awesome. I remember Ian, I don't remember his last
Cooper.
Yeah. Ian Cooper. Like he was one of the helpers in there. And I thought he was like the coolest guy ever.
Yeah. He was cool,
but it just didn't click for me. And they were so desperate to just get us to do anything that they wouldn't tell you in advance, but if you stood up during worship, they would give you a Reese's. And I was offended by that. It's an 11-year-old. I was like, we're worshiping God because we want to, not because we're here for candy, I mean, give it to me, but,
Nice.
I mean, I'll eat it, but, I'm doing this for God.
Right.
And so I was complaining about it a lot, and I just didn't like it. And so then they started doing Bible quizzing, and I was like, well, that'll get me out of this class. So I joined Bible quizzing, because then your Bible quizzing practice was during Sunday school or something. So, I was a Bible quizzer, did okay. I played in one tournament. We got knocked out in the first round. All my questions I got wrong, but I did it.
For those who don't know, Bible quizzing is what
it's where you memorize scriptures, and there might be more to it. I don't remember, but you have to memorize scriptures, and then they'll ask questions, and you got to say like, oh, that's this scripture, or
you have to answer with the scripture, right?
Yeah.
You can't just give them an answer. It's
Right,
got to
right.
be the scripture.
Yeah. And so, I did go to a competition, and, they were like, Randy, you got to answer the questions. I was like, they didn't ask anything from the chapters I memorized. So that wasn't going well either. And I didn't want to go back to Sunday school. And so I don't know what possessed any of these people to do this, but my parents went to Tom Hook, who was the head of Sunday school at the time, and asked him if I could start teaching in Sunday school.
Wow.
At the age of 11. And for some bizarre reason, he said yes.
Well, he was definitely a color outside the lines kind of guy anyway.
Yeah. And so he put me in the 6, 7, and 8-year-old class as a teacher.
Yes.
And so I was in there helping Mike Teets and Angie Owens. And they were really cool. Like I learned a lot watching them teach Sunday school. But I was 11, so like they weren't having me do anything. And I don't remember if my parents said something, or I don't remember, but they basically were like, if Randy's going to be teaching, he needs to teach something or do something. So they had me teach an object lesson or something. And so I taught a lesson when I was 11. It was wasn't great. Nobody was paying attention really. And it was like, okay, well, one and done. We're not going to do that anymore. And then Brother Hook liked to shuffle things up in the summer. Like he would, teachers would change classrooms. He would just, mix things up. And again, I don't know what his problem was. He put me in the 12 and under class. I'm still 11.
As an 11-year-old.
Yeah. So like there was people in there that were older than me. And so he put me in there with another guy who was pretty much brand new to Sunday school, like teaching Sunday school. And he was there. That guy was there for 2 weeks. And then he just stopped showing up. And so it was me with like 15, 20 people older than me, or my age and older. And
so your actual peers.
Yeah. Like I don't.
That's kind of crazy.
It was really crazy, but it was like Mike McGurk was in that class. Like I think Brett Evans, James Evans, like the Trombleys, it was very like people that I was like in class with during the week,
Right.
And so they like I just was doing the best I could, nobody's listening to me, and they I just was doing the best I could till this guy came back, because nobody told me he wasn't coming back. I didn't know, and I don't understand what was going on. I don't know why no more adults ended up in there, but I started realizing, I was like, I need to have a plan. So I started studying the Bible, and I was like, asking God, and I was like, what do we need to talk about in here? And I was like, well, I think we probably need to talk about like listening to those in authority over you, because nobody's listening to me.
Nice.
And so like I would study, and then I would go there and I would like do the best I could leading him and everything. And it was just a nightmare, and it was horrible. And it went on for 6 weeks where it was just a nightmare every single
Oh man, that's
Sunday.
awful.
It was. And like my parents would be coming to
I
like,
mean, Sunday school is such a chore anyway sometimes. And your situation It's like on steroids, man.
And so like I would be like, on the family.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to cast. I mean, I'm saying that with utmost respect for people who teach Sunday school. I mean, they do an amazing work for God.
Well, I'm definitely glad you said that based on where this is going. So, so like I remember the last week I was like, I got to do something. Like, this is just a nightmare. I don't know what to do. And I went in there and I saw a pool stick in the room, and I don't know what, I had just seen Star Wars, and I was like, if you think about it, the story of Samson and in Star Wars are very similar, at least to an 11-year-old. And so I started, and like, I can't remember. I think Phantom Menace had just come out or something like that. So it was kind of fresh in my mind. And so I basically told like the story of Samson in parallel with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn. And it just kept going back and forth between telling the story of Samson and telling them, and it eventually ends with Samson dying and Darth Maul dying, and like the whole thing.
I would have tied it more into the way Darth Vader took out the Emperor in Return of the Jedi.
Sure. Darth Vader's not in that movie though, so well.
That's true. That's true. That's where I thought you were going with it though when you said Samson.
Yeah, well, and I was 11 too. I mean,
that's good.
Yeah, and and it actually, what I noticed was everybody paid attention.
Nice.
Like there were definitely a couple of them were looking at me like what is this idiot doing? But they were listening, like they were quiet and they were paying attention. And actually, James Evans came to me 5 or 6 years later, and he was like, "Hey, you remember that time you were talking about Samson in Star Wars?" I said, "Yeah." He's, "I remember that."
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Nice, man.
And so I got really into teaching Sunday school after that. Ended up teaching Sunday school, or I eventually became a.
You were like an iconic Sunday school teacher for a while, man.
Yeah, I decided, rightly or wrongly, I decided I was like, you know what, I want to be like the best Sunday school teacher here. Like,
yeah,
I want to kill it. And so I tried really, really hard, and I would listen to I had my favorite famous Sunday school teachers, that I would listen to, and I would email them, and they would.
That's awesome.
There's this guy, Bill Wilson, in New York, not the Alcoholics Anonymous guy, but another one, and he runs a Sunday school in New York City that's huge. And so, and I liked his curriculum. And so I would email him all the time. And I was trying to get on the phone with him because I thought that would be really cool. And he would just be like, he was I guess too busy or whatever. So he would just have his secretary just send me CDs of him preaching and stuff.
Nice.
and so I learned a lot, and I got really, really into it. And so, eventually ended up leading a traveling children's ministry. I was based out of Antioch. And I mean, we did a lot.
Yeah, it was huge.
We did. I mean, there was a couple years there where we were doing 150 services a year.
Yeah. And you had you had a whole team that were, it was great.
Oh yeah. I think, I don't think it's this way now, but I feel like at that time, just with all the transition that was going on at Antioch, I felt like nobody was really, and hopefully I'm not offending anybody by saying this, but I felt like as an 18-year-old, I felt like nobody was taking it as serious as me. Like I wanted it to be the best.
Right.
And so I was constantly watching people to see who the best were, and so I was picking people off left and right,
Okay.
so I ended up with Eric Englam, what was I end up with? Melissa Spriggs, my sister
too, right?
No, I never got Chester.
Oh,
I tried.
remember Lucas Umberger?
Lucas was our tech guy, so he would do the sound for
Right.
us, and he would fill in as
You guys had a puppet ministry, right?
everything. I mean, we did skits. We actually had a puppet stage that you wore as a backpack, so that the puppet could just go wherever they wanted. And so we had all kinds of cool stuff.
Awesome.
We had videos. It it was really cool. And we did that for a long time. And actually one year, like we saw over 100 kids get the Holy Ghost.
No
actually.
kidding.
Yeah. Like, it was really cool. And so, but that's kind of getting ahead of things. Another thing that was actually really impactful in my teenage years, was I was always like a big guy. But when I was 10, I liked playing sports, and Antioch had a basketball team. And so I tried out. Valentino Owens was the coach. 18 guys tried out. He ended up keeping all 18 of us, and I was the 17th guy. Because he did make sure to pick us, in order. Right. So I was the second to last guy. He said made the team. But I loved basketball.
No kidding.
And I actually got reasonably good at it. I think I probably was wrong when I figured I was probably going to be the next Charles Barkley, but
right.
Whatever, you could dream. But I was really into it, and I was really having a good time. But in 11th grade, we were practicing, and I got tangled up with Chris Green. And as I was falling to the ground, I heard a bunch of pops in my knee, and found out I'd messed my knee up pretty bad. I can't remember what all was wrong. I mean, it was like, imaging has come such a long way since, I guess that would have probably been 2003. And so like they looked at my knee and they were like, yeah, there's some stuff going on in there. We'll schedule you for surgery, and then should be good to go in a couple months. And so I went in for the surgery, and they dealt with it. And when I got home, my mom was like, hey, I got bad news. Once they got in there, it was actually way worse in there than they thought. There's so much, it was so messed up in there, I guess, that they couldn't see what all had gone on was wrong. But it was like the ACL was torn, the MCL was torn, meniscus was all torn up. Something else was,
man, that's sad.
And it was kind of funny. Like when I was really bummed about that. But whatever. But then right around that time is when my father got sick. That was kind of a slow burn for a while. So I think he may have already been sick when that happened, but we just didn't know how serious it was.
And your father had, just to talk a little bit, your father had he had MS early in his life, right?
Yeah, he had multiple sclerosis in the early 80s, back when it was much more serious than it is now. I think now it's just like once they catch it, they can basically stop the disease, where whatever damage is done, but it won't do anymore. But back then, there wasn't really anything they could do for you. And so he got multiple sclerosis, and I don't remember the whole story. Maybe, my mother will come on here.
Yeah, we're trying.
I told her I was going to come on here and purposely say things wrong, so she would have to come and fix it.
Nice, man.
But they ended up coming to church at Antioch, and my dad came home after that service and was like, I'm healed. And he went to Bishop Wright and was like, hey, I'm healed. And Bishop Wright was like, healed from what? Bishop's like, I don't really know you that much, And my dad was like, multiple sclerosis, and like, should I stop taking my pills and whatever? And Bishop was like, no, keep taking. And cutting out a lot of the story, he went back to the doctors, and they were like, look, you don't have MS anymore.
Right. I mean, it was verifiably.
Oh yeah. It was verified.
That's awesome, man.
And then also like some of the drugs they were giving him, and I'm kind of fuzzy on these details, so I might be wrong on the exact reason why. But I believe it was some of the drugs he had to take to try and make life bearable with the disease, made it so they weren't going to be able to have kids. But I think it was either 2 or 3 years after he got healed, I was born.
Wow.
And it's one of those things when because of that, I always felt like I wasn't necessarily supposed to be here, but God really had a reason for me to be here.
Yeah.
So I needed to, I didn't interpret that thought in like the most healthy way, but I interpreted that as, I'm here to serve somebody else, because I'm not even supposed to be here.
Right.
And that, I think, kind of that mindset kind of led to some unhealthy things in me, but it also, I'm really, really grateful for it, because it really set me up for later in life. That mindset really made things a lot easier for me in ways that, will become obvious when we get there.
Right.
But so anyway, going back to when I was
grade.
Yeah, 10th grade. My dad was sick. And I should have written down the dates, but I was planning on just kind of skimming over this. But I want to say it was in February of 25. Going back further than that, it was, they were realizing he had, I believe it was tongue and throat cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And a doctor went in to try and cut it out. And I'm not sure exactly what happened. There was some combination of, he didn't get all of it. Insurance was pretty weird back then, and so he didn't get treatment right away. And basically they had to go in again because they hadn't gotten all of it. And so I believe it was in February of 25.
February of
25. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
5 of 2005.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Of February 2005. I think that's when it was. No, 2004. I don't know. Who cares? The thing I'm telling you did happen. I just don't remember what year. But he went in for a surgery, and I don't remember exactly what all happened to him, but it kicked his butt. In the 3 weeks he was in the hospital, 3 or 4 weeks he was in the hospital, he lost 80 pounds.
Wow.
He came out, and just no strength.
And your dad was always really larger than life kind of guy, man.
Yeah.
Like very, very always jovial, always exuberant. It was really tough. I don't mean to break in, but your dad was an important person in my life, and I had lost my father in 2000, and your father. Not that we were super tight, but he was just somebody that always cheered me up when I was going through all that. I was always happy to see him, man, because he just always had a nice thing to say to me, and he made me feel better. I actually, he had that lawn care company. I worked for him for a little while in the 90s, so we had something of a relationship. And when he was going through all of that, it was like devastating to watch for me too. I mean, I'm sure it was as worse for you, but it was startlingly. It was one of the first times for me that I'd ever experienced seeing somebody that I was somewhat close to sort of go through that whole thing, and that was a tough time.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting that you say that, because I can't remember any dates. I know my birthday. I know my wife's birthday. I'm pretty sure I know my mother's birthday. I know your dad when your dad died. I mark that date every single year. I was pretty close to Heidi, and Heidi was a very important person to me, especially in high school. I'll explain why. But and so I've every year, like, I remember where I was when I found out. I remember what CD was playing in the CD player.
It was one of those moments, man.
Yeah, that was rough. So when my dad got out of the hospital, He, excuse me, he, like I said, lost, 70-ish pounds, was extremely weak. And I actually remember when he got out of the car, I actually had to basically hold him up and walk backwards.
Man, that's rough.
Like help him in, and then, put him on the couch. And then, then when he needed to go to the bed, picking him up again,
right,
walking him back. And I remember when the first time I had to do that, he was so weak. I swear he fell asleep as we were walking.
Wow.
Like he just his head just kind of rested on my shoulder. And, that was kind of that was an interesting experience. But I need to go back on something. So when I hurt my knee, this is a part of my story that I don't enjoy. So when I hurt my knee, and I was waiting for the surgery, we were going to church at Annapolis High School, and I was sitting on the front row with a bunch of people, and I got my crutches and all this kind of stuff. Or actually, I don't remember if I had crutches or because of that the kind of injury it is. If you just put a knee brace on really tight, it's like nothing's wrong. It's kind of interesting in that way. But so we were at church, and it was a big worship service, and it was all, exciting, and, people were all pumped up, and I'm kind of doing my thing or whatever. And I felt like I heard a voice say, "If you dance, I'll heal you." And I was like, "Really?" And and I heard this voice say, like, "Do you trust me?" I was like, "Well, sure." And so I did. I jumped up and I started dancing, and it was fine. Like I was able to just jump around and dance and do whatever. And I was like, I'm healed. Like, this is amazing. I'm healed. And I think it was the next day, like Monday night, I think, when we were up here at the church, and, told the Pastor Wright that, what happened, I've been healed. And they brought me up, and,
boy.
And it gave me the mic, and I told my story. And then I was like, and I told the whole thing. And then I'm like, all right, dance with me, jump, and I'm jumping up and down, and all excited. Everybody's jumping with me. And it's this big, boost of faith thing. And I scheduled another doctor's appointment because, I was thinking of Heidi. I was like, I'm going to go up there just like the thing with Heidi. And I'm going to see the doctor, and they're going to be like, oh, that's amazing. It's fine now. And I went to see my doctor 2 days later. And he said, I think you made it worse.
Oh, man.
And I was like, well, I was holding on to it. I was like, well, no, God said he healed me, so I don't tell you, dude, I get that it hurts. I get it's really swollen right now. And I get that I can't put any weight on it, but I mean, you're going to believe me or your lying eyes. You know what I mean? So a couple months later, I had surgery. And I was really embarrassed by that. I was,
Yeah, that's a rough one, man.
Yeah. I mean, I was, I believe I was 16, when that happened. And, it's I mean, we all jumped together, and now I'm coming in on crutches. Let's just not talk about it, Let's just pretend that didn't happen, please.
Under the carpet, man.
And that really annoyed me, because I really, really felt like I heard from God, because that's not a thought that I would have thought.
Right.
And that's kind of how I feel like God talks to me. It's not so much. Sometimes it is an literal, very rarely, but sometimes it is an absolutely audible voice. But most of the time it's a thought that's definitely not mine.
Right.
And nothing in me, I hated, by the time I was 16, I hated dancing at church, so,
Yeah.
so I wasn't going to do it because I wanted to, because I didn't want to. So I was really convinced that God had told me to do that. And so I remember I would be going to physical therapy afterwards, and, it would hurt. It wouldn't go well. And I would be driving back, and I'd be like, God, that was really messed up. You embarrassed me in front of a whole lot of people. And I would just be fussing at God. I remember like, driving out of BWMC's parking lot where I had physical therapy, and I'd just be fussing at God about like, what is your problem? Like, why would you do that? Like half the people I go to school with are like saying they're checking out when they're 18, and I didn't say that. So why are
Right.
you doing this to me? And God would just say, "Do you trust me?" And I'm like, "No." I'm just kidding. Yes, I do. All right. I do. I guess I do. All right. I do. I'm sorry I said that, and then, a couple of weeks later, I would have that same kind of thing again, where it'd just be like, God, what is your problem? Like, why would you come on? Because, I skipping a bunch of stuff. I ended up having 4 knee surgeries.
No kidding.
Yeah. They want me to have another one.
I know. Well, yeah, I know. You spoke of that on your YouTube channel, which we'll talk about later.
And, so it would just be like, I was just like, God, like, I don't understand that. That doesn't make sense to me, and they're like, my physical therapist was very dramatic. She told me that, like, when I proposed to my wife, I was not going to be able to get down on one knee. Like, it was like all
Lord,
this
man.
kind of like stuff, and so like that, it frustrated me. But again, it was like, what are my options here? I guess I could choose to not trust God, and that does feel like a valid choice, at least to a 16-year-old. But I've had enough experiences to know that this is real, that God is real. So I don't know what's going on here, but I don't really have any options. I can't go anywhere. So I'm doing my best to trust you. Help me with my lack of trust. And, so then when my dad got sick, it was the same kind of thing where like God, I was just like, God, is my dad going to be all right? And he was just, do you trust me? And that was the only word I would ever get.
Yeah, that's powerful.
I mean, sure now.
No, I'm speaking in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
When you're in the midst of it, that's the last thing you want to hear. But
yeah. And it was just like, yes, I trust you. I would like it if you would be okay though, and it's just, do you trust me? It's like, yes. And so when he got home from the hospital, things didn't go well. He was in the hospital a lot. In the last, I guess that would have been 6 or 7 months that he was alive, he spent significantly more time in the hospital than out. There would be several times where, my mom would wake me up in the middle of the night and be like, hey, we need you to go to the 24-hour Rite Aid or whatever it was to pick up whatever medicine the doctor had said to get him.
were they giving him any kind of outlook?
Yeah, he's going to be completely fine.
That's what the doctor said?
Yeah. And that's what I thought. I was just like, it was pretty apparent right away that it was going to take the recovery was definitely going to take longer than what they were saying. They were saying he was going to be back to work by September, and that was
mowing lawns.
Well, he was working.
Oh,
he
was
was working
insurance.
he was working for Tony Lewis. Driving a dump truck. Or
A little side note. You remember when your father sold insurance?
mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know this. The year before my father died was 1999.
Mm-hmm.
I came home on leave, and your dad, I'm sitting there in the living room. I'm home on leave from the Air Force, and your dad comes and he's like, "Hey, man, we talked a little bit." Well, he was selling insurance. Well, he sold my father's life insurance policy that day, and I signed as a witness on the paper. And a year later, my father passed away. And my mother walks away with this life insurance policy, and your father's the one that sold it.
Yeah, I actually do know that because I remember him saying, like, we need to make sure Luann knows about that. Because for all I know, she did know. I have no idea. But, like, I just remember my dad saying, like, we need to make sure she knows that, this is a thing. So, yeah, I actually do remember that. So we're going through the stuff with him, and I was taking him to his radiation and chemo appointments, and that was a nightmare. Like,
Oh, I'll bet.
you know, because they never did anything on time. So like if you know if it was a 1 p.m. appointment, like hopefully he'd be in there by 3:30 or 4. And so you would end up sitting in the waiting room with just the people that were either going to be right before you or right after you. And so you get to know people, and you know the folks that were right after us that we would sit with for a couple hours. I mean, eventually we found out that the man had been married to this woman, and they had eventually gotten divorced, and now he was married to her niece. And it was just like, I mean, it was just like very bizarre. Like, you know, all right.
And you're what, 16?
Yeah, 16. But there was some pretty crazy things that happened. Like he, one time when we were driving, he all of a sudden didn't know who I was. We were crossing Ritchie Highway at Aquahart Road, and all of a sudden he like looked at me and was like all freaked out, and no idea who I was, just freaked out. He was having, basically it sounded like he was having a stroke or something.
Oh, man.
And I remember like rushing him to the hospital, and I didn't know where to go. So like, I mean, now I would have just gone to the emergency room, but
Right.
I just went to the cancer place and was like, something's wrong with him. He doesn't know who I am. And then they came in and they were taking care of him. And, you know, I'm trying to stay with him, and they're saying like, you need to move your car. Like, you can't just leave parked right there. And, but so like stuff like that would happen. And like, you know, like that
messes with your mind.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And, you know, you check in with God again and be like,
Yeah, right.
you know, like, hey, like, I don't like how this is going
Right.
at all. And,
You know, just on that a little bit, because we a lot of times, like, we talk about, I don't know how I do it without God, you know, and that's true. I don't know how I do it without God, but I have to say that there is a struggle to believing in God and having all of these bad things happen, because you're like, God, aren't you supposed to be doing something about all this?
yeah. And yeah. And, yeah. So yeah, I would be praying and be like, you know, like, what can, you know, what help? We need help here. This isn't going well, you know? And the only answer I would ever get is, do you trust me? And it's just like, no, like your track record hasn't been great. And then, you know, I always made sure to repent of that right before, you know, relatively quickly. But, you know, one of the things I really appreciate about my relationship with Jesus is that I feel like I'm allowed to have an honest, I don't have to pretend.
Amen, man.
You know, so
I think that's so important.
Yeah. So I you know, when I pray, I don't feel like I have to be like, you know, God, I know your way is better than ours, and your thoughts higher than our thoughts. You know, I can pray and say, I'm not sure that that's true.
Right. I appreciate like Jeremiah in the Bible, you know, where he's like, I don't want to go out here and tell all these people this stuff, man.
Yeah. And so you know, when he got sick, I stopped caring about basketball. Honestly, actually, once I hurt my knee, I stopped caring about basketball. I didn't want to play anymore. I would, you know, I would have to like take my dad to his radiation appointment and then drop him off at home and then go to basketball practice. And, you know, it's just like mentally I was drained. And so when I would go to basketball practice, like half the time I would just sit in the parking lot, you know, in my truck and just sit there. And I remember one time I did that. I would always leave before the team left, you know, so that nobody would see me doing that. And I remember one time I did that and the battery died and everybody just left me there.
Oh, man.
I remember there was like a grown man whose name I'm not going to mention, but he was there. And he was like, he was telling me, he was like, oh, yeah, your battery's dead. And I was like, I don't have jumper cables. He's like, I don't either. And I was like, oh. And he's like, yeah, sorry. And he left. And I remember sitting there thinking like, you know, like, man, nobody nobody owes you anything. Goodness gracious. Cause I'm going through this thing with my dad. This is horrible.
Yeah, that is so messed
and
up, man.
And you couldn't help me out, man.
Wow.
Whatever. It's fine. I don't care now. I just think it's funny. I've never told anybody that. So,
Well, now you just
I just told
a few people at least.
At least 12, right?
Right.
And so,
but these are all the things that get dropped on us, and that God allows, and we have to somehow sort through it.
Yeah. And I remember in it's probably July. I remember things weren't going good with him. He had just gone to the hospital again, and he was back again. And I mean, just vomiting all the time, and just everything was a nightmare. And I remember going up to my room, and I was just like, he is definitely gonna die.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember sitting, laying down on my bed and just crying my eyes out, just sobbing. Because I was just like, I knew it. I knew he was going to die.
Was anyone else in your house, like your mom, were they all holding out hope for?
Yeah, we all were. I mean, Bishop Wright actually had a dream where he said he had seen a person preaching, and he said it looked like my dad. And so we kind of held on to that,
Right.
Bishop Wright had this dream, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
That the guy sounded healthy in Bishop's dream. So,
Right.
But as it went on, just, by that time I was 18, and I just was like, I don't see it happening. And so I mourned his death a month or two before it actually happened.
Oh, wow.
And so
you came to peace with it while he was still alive?
Peace would be a strong word, but
Came to terms with it.
I knew. And I remember, oh shoot, I just remembered something about this story. It's going to be hard to get it through it without crying. So
it's rained in this booth before.
I completely forgot about this till just now. So they decided they were going to have to operate on his heart. He'd gotten a staph infection in his heart. And so I think one of the valves was basically stuck open or something. I don't remember. But they were going to have to do open heart surgery on him. And the doctor came in to talk to him, and they told us 85% chance he's going to be fine. And I was like, 15% chance he's dead. Got it. And I didn't say that, but my face definitely did. And I just looked, I was like, oh, well, this is how it ends. Okay. And I was just shaking my head and looking down. And I remember my dad tapped me on the shoulder, and I looked him in the eye, and he said, God has not been unkind to me. And I was like, as a 18-year-old, I was like, that is such a crazy thing to say. I disagree. I think it's been pretty awful. And that's more or less the last thing he ever said to me.
Man, that is powerful, bro.
I'm sure we said I love you and all that stuff after that. But they wheeled him in to the for the operation. And actually, if I remember correctly, your mom actually waited in the waiting room with us, actually, I think. And I remember there was going to be like a 5-hour procedure, and 5-hour mark gets here, nothing. 6-hour mark, 7-hour mark. And, and then somebody came out and was like, hey, it's not looking good. This isn't going well. And I remember us praying in that waiting room, and, it was intense, cause it's like that wait, the not knowing, it's like, yeah, it's just like, this is going to sound callous, but I think people appreciate what I'm saying. It's like, just either be alive or be dead. Like,
Yeah.
let's just do this,
I agree.
because that not knowing,
When you sit in that room, man, it's one of the worst places. All my kids' surgeries, I've always gone to the surgery. I'll bring a book. I'll bring this. I'll bring that. I never even touch the books. I never do anything but stare at that stupid progress thing on the TV.
yeah. And so they eventually came out and they're like, look, this isn't, he's gonna go. And so, if you want to say anything to him, now would be the time. And I remember when it was my turn, because we couldn't go in there all at once. Like, we had to take turns. And I remember going in there and like, this is what the image is in my head. Like, they hadn't even bothered to close him up all the way. Like,
Wow.
he just had like one of these weird surgical sheet things on his chest, but it looked like they could still do some more work in there when, like they hadn't closed him up yet, is what it looked like. And I remember like leaning down, I love you. And, I'm sorry this is happening.
Right.
And I remember saying, like, I said, I'm going to take care of Mom and Kath. Like, don't worry, I'm going to do it. And like, and I meant that. I was very, very serious about that. Cause it kind of, again, fed into that mindset I've had where it's like, I'm here to serve somebody else. Like, I'm not here for me. I'm here because someone else needs me. And so I was like, this is what we're doing. And then he just wouldn't die.
Really?
Yeah. First they were like, we can't even try and shock his heart, if it stops, because the thing will just explode. And eventually they were like, okay, now we can shock his heart. And then he started, like, he would open his eyes.
So he was still like on bypass for a long time?
You'd have to ask my mom that. I'll say yes, and then she can come on.
I mean, you're
fix
saying
it,
this
but I
is
don't
all
remember.
while he's on the table still.
Oh no, I'm sorry. So like what I'm saying now happened over the course of days.
Oh, okay.
Like, we thought he was going to die that day.
Okay.
And he just didn't. Like,
because when they are doing heart surgery, what they do is they stop the heart and they hook you up to a machine that pumps your blood for you.
okay.
And then when they're done, they'll connect everything and shock the heart back. So that's why I'm getting the impression that he was on this bypass machine.
I have
But,
no
yeah,
idea. I
right.
have no idea.
Right.
That's
Really interesting, though.
and so actually, it was really interesting for my mother to listen to this and then tell me what I get right and wrong.
We're calling for you, Sister Dulin.
And so he just didn't die. And he was just laying there, not doing anything. And then he started opening his eyes. He started doing different things. Like, we're starting to get a little bit of hope. And he was in there for, I want to say 35, 40 days in the cardiac ICU. And slowly he started getting his ability to, like, move his arms. He could move his head around. Eventually he was able to sit up. I think they had to kind of strap him into the chair to keep him from sliding down, but he was able to sit up, and you could see in his eyes that he was there. He couldn't talk anymore for whatever reason. But you made eye contact with him, you could tell he was there. And so, we would just sit there with him, and, talk to him. And, his birthday, was, September 3rd. And he had just discovered, before he went into the hospital, he had just discovered he liked Third Day a lot. And, the band.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I don't remember if I bought it or who bought it, but we bought him the latest Third Day album for his birthday. But things started going downhill right after that. And, eventually he stopped being able to sit up, stopped opening his eyes, stopped moving, and leaving a bunch of the gory details out. He died at September 28th of 2005.
Wow.
And I can't listen to Third Day.
Yeah.
Completely
Hate it when that happens.
Completely ruined them for me. This is kind of a silly aside considering what we're talking about, but I can listen to Mac Powell's solo stuff and I enjoy it, but I cannot listen to Third Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he died. And honestly, I'm sure I cried when he passed because, we were right there. I watched him die.
You watched him go?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I watched him.
What was that like?
I'll never forget it. And it actually comes into what happened when he died comes into some stuff in my story later. But, yeah, he, basically his body was trying to survive and, it couldn't. And, when somebody's dying, you can see that happening. And it's not a great sight.
I'm sure, man. I've never had that experience.
Yeah, I've had it once.
That's enough.
Yeah. And my mother sang him out. Like I can't remember what I can't remember what the song she was that she sang. I want to say it was like, what a day that will be when my Jesus I shall see. I think that's what it was. But and she sang it as he was dying and, he died and I hung my head and honestly, I don't think I cried. I don't think I even cried at his funeral. Like I said, I had mourned his death a couple months prior. So, I was basically by the time he actually died, I had moved on from grief and just went to anger. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and actually it's kind of ironic, or not ironic, but it's just interesting. I never cried for him until I started dating my wife. And I don't know what it was. I think I decided to just shut off my emotions and she kind of pulled those emotions out of me. And so I remember like going to church, like on the day of his death and like pulling into the parking lot and just losing it. It's just crying and crying.
Like on an anniversary of his death?
Yeah. It was like the 4th anniversary of his death.
Okay.
And that was the first time I had cried about him dying since he had died. So that was a tough time. But one thing that was a silver lining for me that really stood out during that was I felt very, very, very alone when he was dying, over the course of that 6-7 months. And, I was going through the worst thing I'd ever gone through.
Sure.
And I felt, I'm sure this isn't fair to the people that I'm saying this about, but I would say it to their face. I felt like nobody cared. I really felt like, Steve Rhodes was very helpful, and he, there was a couple of times he drove me to the hospital, cause they were worried, about something that was going to happen. And he was great. But I really felt like there were only 2 people that actually cared about me during that time. And again, this is my perspective.
Yeah. Well, you're what, 17, 18?
Yeah. And I felt like,
so you're like going through the natural teenage angst and you're dealing with that at the same time.
Yeah. And so from my perspective, and again, I'm open to being wrong about it, but from my perspective, I felt like everybody really cared about my mom and what she was going through. And I felt like they really cared about my sister and what she was going through. But I felt like nobody cared about me except for 2 people, only 2 people. And that was Heidi, your sister, and Chester Spriggs. And I will love those 2 people till the day I die. Nice. I've told Joel Brown, Heidi's husband, I was like, dude, I don't think your sister even knows, but like she is one of a very small number of people that if she needed help, I would drop everything and I would go help her because it meant so much to me that, there was at least two people that actually cared,
Yeah.
cared enough to say something.
Right.
Like she would ask like how I was doing or how my dad was doing. And that meant a lot.
Right.
So
you can't underestimate or you can't understate. I think a lot of times people don't say anything because they don't know what to say. And I mean, you should say something.
yeah,
Just tell somebody you love them, if nothing else.
yeah. Cause I mean, I grew up at this church. There's a lot of people
Right.
here and I'm sure they care about me and stuff.
Absolutely.
But, I definitely didn't feel it
Right.
when I was 18.
Right. I always like after going through this stuff because those times you feel so isolated because it's like nobody knows what I'm going through. Nobody understands. But catching that one text from somebody that says, "Hey man, I'm praying for you. I just want you to know I love you." It goes. You don't realize how far it goes.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we don't realize how much God's talking to us and we're just ignoring it.
Absolutely.
Because like this is something that I started doing a couple years ago because like, and I don't know if I'm being dramatic, but I feel like this is true. I don't care about a lot of people. Like I really don't care. I'm being somewhat sarcastic, at least, for this recording, but, there's an overwhelming majority of the people that if they died, I'd just be like, oh, okay. So I don't, and my reason for saying that is, I don't think about other people. I think about the people that I care about extremely deeply, which is a very small defined group of people. But aside from that, I don't think about anyone. And at some point I realized when somebody's name enters your brain, God did that.
Yeah.
You weren't thinking, you wouldn't have thought about that person because you don't think about anybody.
Most of us are probably like you. We just don't admit to it.
Well,
so.
and I actually do think that's true. I just decided not to.
Thank you for pulling the covers back on that.
I just choose to pretend that well, I mean, if I'm in front of you, I'll pretend I care about you. But anyway, and so I started doing that where I would just, if somebody popped into my head, I would call them or, whatever. And I, there's most of the time when I do it, they're like, oh, thanks, man. And, but every once in a while, like I'll call somebody and be like, hey dude, I have no idea why I'm thinking about you. It must be a God thing. So I'm just letting you know I'm praying for you. Hope that everything's going all right. And like, there's been a couple of times where the person's been like, you have no idea.
Absolutely, man.
And I'm like, well, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Glad it helped. So that's basically the ending of the not quite as interesting part of my story, at least from my perspective.
When your father dies and you're in this moment, like where are you at with God?
I don't feel anything. And the prayer I would pray a lot, 'cause like I said, I was angry, and it wasn't just limited to people. I was angry at God too. And the prayer I would pray often and a lot was like, I am just beyond pissed off at you. I'm not going anywhere, but I am really angry at you. There are some really bad dads out here. I can think of some folks that you could have taken.
I hear you, man.
And because it wasn't just that. It was like my dad was my best friend. Like I didn't.
Yeah, you guys were tight.
Very. And like I didn't have a lot of friends. Like the older I got, kind of the fewer I had. And I'm content to go a whole day without even opening my mouth and saying anything. And I didn't. I had a lot of acquaintances that probably would have referred to me as a friend, but I didn't really have a lot of friends, people that I would call friends. And so uh, the guy that I talked to all the time, that I related to the most, that I worked with, all that stuff, died. And so I was angry. And I remember Stu Mott was like the youth pastor, college, whatever guy. And I actually remember he invited me over to his house and was like, you're being kind of mean to people. And I said, well, I just don't have patience for them. And I said, like I've gone through this horrible thing, and I'm still coming to church, so I don't feel bad for so and so, and I if I can do it, they can do it, and not having a good attitude, is angry that my dad died, and
Right.
that went on for a while. And then from anger, I just shut it all off. I just turned the emotions off, don't care anymore. I mean, I cared, but just, it's not worth it.
Are you still doing the kid thing at this time?
Yeah, that actually kicked into overdrive once I turned 18. So like basically I I won't say the person's name, but they would tell you this. But when my dad was sick, I was teaching Sunday school with this other person. And this person said, it does not make sense to me that I'm in charge. You should be in charge, Randy. Like, this makes no sense. And then I think 3 weeks after my dad died, they switched it and they put me in charge. And she was like, I knew it. I knew they only had me in charge because they were waiting for this to get
Oh my gosh, man.
So yeah, so I was doing that the whole time, and forgive me, I just want to make sure everything's okay. No, yeah, everything's fine. So yeah, so I was still involved with the kids thing. I was wanting to quit college. I was going to Anne Arundel Community College, and with my dad dying, I was like, you know what? This is the perfect excuse. I need to work and make money for my family. I am going to quit college. And Bishop Wright caught wind of that and decided to weigh in. So I wasn't quitting college. But I hated going. So my mom actually was looking up something, and she was like, you really like working with kids and stuff. Bowie State University's got a degree program for, studying child development. That sounds like something you'd be into. And so I was like, yeah, I would. And so I applied to Bowie State University, handed in person the application. The guy that I gave it to is this guy, Freddie Vaughns, who anybody that went to Bowie State 15 years ago will know who that is. And I gave him, Bowie's a historically black college.
Yeah.
And I said, I gave him my application, and I was like, yeah, I hope I get in. And he was like, you're not going to have any problem. And he was right. I didn't have any problem. They let me right in.
Nice.
Diversity. And
Randy's white, everybody. In case you don't,
in case you didn't know
that.
And so I went to Bowie to study child development, and I don't mind saying it, I was an incredible student there. And this does matter. I'm not, it matters for the story later, but I was just eating everything up. Like, I didn't even have to read the book. I got the concepts. I was understanding things. I would understand stuff so well that, like, if a professor was talking about a topic, I would go to like another class's book that I felt like explained that topic better, so I could study that book instead of the professor's, the assigned reading for that class. And I ate it all up, and graduated from Bowie in 2010 with a degree in pedology, the study of child development. They now call it child and adolescent studies. Excuse me. And so with that degree, I got a job at the Department of Social Services working in the foster care system. And that was an awesome job. I loved working that job. The first couple of years I was there, I worked as a reunification worker. So if a kid came into foster care, it was my job to try and get them back home with their with their biological parents. So I would work with the kid, like make sure they got their services they needed, and then I would also work with the parents to work on what they needed to work on so that they could get their kids back, whether it was drug treatment or parenting classes or whatever. And I really enjoyed that job. It was very, very challenging. It was very challenging.
But you're feeling like you're fulfilling that. You're here to serve somebody.
Yeah. And it was one of those, one of the cool things about that job was, I don't know why I said the cool thing. It wasn't a cool thing, but it was just a thing. You never knew when you were going to be working for 24 hours. So, it always was like 4:45 on a Friday where something would just blow up with a kid and you would have to go down there and get the kid and try and iron out whatever happened or deal with whatever had gone wrong and see if you could patch it up or help them. Or like I had a foster kid who she cut the mess out of herself. Like she was a cutter and she got upset about something and she just turned her wrist to like hamburger meat.
Oh, wow, man.
And, her parents, wouldn't have gone to the hospital with her, but also couldn't. They legally couldn't. And so I took her.
Why were they legally not able?
Well, they because of the issues that had gotten that girl into foster care, they couldn't be unsupervised with her.
So could her foster parents take her?
Yeah, but that was a really bad relationship. Like that wasn't going to work. That foster mom was actually planning on kicking her out when she did that.
How old was she?
She was 14. Yeah, 14. And so I went to the hospital with her and spent the night in the hospital and, dealt with whatever needed to be dealt with, basically functioning as the parent. And so, it'd be like it was one of those things where like I dropped her off at her foster home at like 6 a.m. the next morning. And then I had to be in the office by 9 because we were going to have a meeting to discuss what had happened yesterday.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was just, it was nuts. Just, you never knew what was going to happen. But I actually learned I got a really cool object lesson about what God does for us when I worked there. Because the first case I worked, was a complete nightmare. The boy was born to, it was just nuts. The woman was in jail for starving her daughter almost to death. And she had thought that she would get leniency from the judge if she was pregnant. So she got pregnant again during her trial. And,
man,
yeah.
People are crazy, man.
Yeah. And so when that baby was born, it's horrific to me thinking about this, but this woman gave birth to this baby, handcuffed to a hospital bed,
Are you kidding me?
No. Yeah. I mean, it's just nuts to think about that. But anyway, so that boy came into foster care and I did everything I could to try and get him with a relative, to keep the family intact because, it's kind of a bizarre thing, but technically she didn't do anything to him. She did something to his sister, but she hadn't done anything to him. So I really wanted to be able to try and get the family back together, but it wasn't going to happen. There was just no way. She was going to be in jail for way too long. And so the plan got changed to adoption, and the foster mom that had him since he was 3 days old, she adopted him. And I attended the adoption and I didn't realize what all goes into an adoption, but it's a legal proceeding. But one of the things that happens, at least in Maryland, I'm assuming it's everywhere, but at least in Maryland, when a child's adopted, they changed their name. Like, so his name was, I'll say, Bob Smith. Well, when he got adopted, his last name was changed to his foster parents' last name. And not only was it changed to their last name, the foster mother, her name was put in where the birth mom's name would have been.
Oh, wow.
And the foster dad, his name was put in where the biological father would have been, where legally they've always been his parents.
Wow.
There
So
was
it's like naturalized.
there was nothing, as far legally, as far as anyone's concerned, there was no parents, there was no life before these people.
That gives me chills, man.
Yeah. I mean, it did for me when I realized that, that they're, this kid, had a name. He was named after a horrible person, and he looked like that horrible person, and, that was who he was. He was part of that, honestly, hopeless family. But when he was adopted and brought into the Boone's family, he became a Boone, and they became his parents. And as far as the world's concerned, as far as anyone's concerned, there never were any other parents. No one even knows he's adopted. Legally, he became a part of that family, and he's always been a son of them.
That's amazing.
It just really was like kind of like a powerful thing to think about, that, like when we're baptized and, filled with God's Spirit, and, like he's our father now. We're a part of his bloodline. Like we're one of his. And as far as he's concerned, we were always one of his.
Right.
There's nothing to say different. And it's just like, that's really cool to
It is,
think
man.
about.
That's awesome.
So I did that for a couple of years. A lot of fun. I mean, it's very difficult, but a lot of fun. And then my son was born he was born in 2012 in October. And they say you should only do like one major life change at a time. My son was born in October. I changed jobs, or switched units, but changed jobs in December, and bought a house in January. And so I went from...
When in October? What's his birthday?
October 29th.
All right. I'm October 4th, so we're both Libras.
And now I know that.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
So I switched over to the long-term foster care unit. And so instead of working with foster kids and trying to get them back with their parents, I was basically working with folks that there was just no hope. It was never going to happen. And so I was trying to get them ready. And I was really good at foster care, man. I wasn't a social worker, but University of Maryland, or UMBC, would put social work interns with me to get their learning hours in. And actually 3 years in a row, my intern won intern of the year for Anne Arundel County.
Nice.
Because I'm that good,
Nice.
But because jokes aside, because I was good, which is more as like I was just too dumb to know when to quit. You do a good job, they reward you with harder cases. And so at one point, all my clients were either gang members, sex offender. I'm talking about the kids, gang members, sex offenders, or committed to psychiatric institutions.
The kids that you were overseeing were sex offenders?
Yes. I mean, not in the legal sense, because the stuff they did, they were juveniles. I mean, a couple of them are legally sex offenders now.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah. We used to joke in child welfare, it takes all sorts to do this job, like just because I can do this part doesn't mean I could do that part, and vice versa. And you know, the foster parents used to say, "I don't know how you do that job, Randy," and I would say, "I don't know how you have these folks living in your house."
Really?
So, you know, I mean, so I'm just as impressed with you as you are with me.
No doubt.
But one of my very odd skills is that I'm able to look past the worst thing you did and see you as a human being. And so I worked really, really well with sex offenders. I was able to do a lot of good work with sex offenders, and it's because, you know, honestly, it's not that hard because, you know, society looks so down on people that do that kind of thing with good reason. That it doesn't take a lot of kindness for you to be able to make a connection with somebody like that. And so I would work with these guys because I would always tell them, like, you know, my hope is that what went down with you, you're a teenager. It basically goes away when you turn 18. You know, it's not going on your adult record. So let's get this stuff taken care of now so that you can be a productive adult. And, you know, it would just work. I loved working with them. I got into a couple of really weird gang things. One of the, all right, I'll tell the story.
Yeah, it sounds interesting, man. I'm trying not to push.
So I had one young lady who, me and her did not get along. She was very, very, the world owed her everything. And she was very nasty to me all the time, but for whatever reason, I cared about her. And so she got, she ran away and went to stay with her boyfriend who was down in Southern Maryland. And he was a horrible, horrible human being, a disgusting person. And he would, I don't want to do stuff where you got to edit it out later, but his friends all loved it when she came. Everyone had a great time.
I think we get it.
Yeah. And that's the more nice things. One of the nice things. He did something pretty horrific that we can say, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. But so she went down there, and I wanted to get her away from him because I knew that I just knew it wasn't a good situation.
Did she go down there willingly and participate in this stuff willingly?
Yeah. Because he loved her, I mean,
Incredible, man.
He had given her a baby, I mean, the baby died, but, we're connected. He loves me, this is what I got to do, And so I went down there to go get her, and it wasn't as you hear this story go and you say that was a dumb decision, I know.
Yeah. Okay.
So we went down there, and because I had an assistant that went with me, especially when I was dealing with some of these girls. And so we went down there, and I didn't know what this guy looked like. I just knew his name. And I haven't said anybody else's name, so I can say his name without screwing it up, or giving away anything. But I pulled up to the house where he was, and there was a whole bunch of dudes outside. And so I pulled up, and I was like, I don't know what else. So I just got out of the car, and I was like, hey, are you Mark? And this dude says, no. I was like, I think you are, Mark. He goes, well, I'm not. And he just turns up the stereo on his car. And I was like, I really think you're Mark. I said her name, but I was like, is my young lady in there? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, I think you do. And he's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And there's like 5 or 6 guys out here. And
you don't have cops on call or anything like that?
Not that it didn't occur to me. And so I was like, and I'm getting fired up because you lied to me. And so I start yelling the girl's name, and I'm like, young lady, young lady, come out here. We're leaving here. You're not staying here. Yeah, come out here, young lady. And the door busts open. And this little guy comes out with like 10 dudes. And he gets right up in my face smoking a cigarette. And he just starts screaming at me, like cussing at me and just calling me all kinds of hurtful names. And, just saying like, I'm trying to lock her up and just like yelling and screaming at me. And I'm just looking and like, I am seeing red. I am so angry because she came out half naked. Like I was furious. So as he's yelling at me and cursing and whatever, and at some point I kind of came to, and I realized I was completely surrounded by his guys, like completely. And I looked around and I was like, oh, I messed up. And I started praying. I was looking at him like, like I'm about to kill this guy. But I started praying. I was like, Jesus, in my mind, like, Jesus, I really messed up. I really need some help. Please help me.
Oh, man.
And I don't know. He's screaming and cursing at me. And then I don't know what happened. They just, all of a sudden, his guys just walked away. They all just walked away to the other side of the property, staring at me. He's screaming at them, screaming at me. And they all just walked over there. And I got in my car and I left.
Wow, man, that's wild.
And I really think God got me out of something.
Yeah.
And especially based on how the assistant was screaming at me on the way home.
No doubt, man.
But I didn't get the girl, but I really wanted to. And so I started being very petty. Some people think this is wrong. I think it's great. I called the police the next day and said, hey, there's a vulnerable adult at this house, blah, 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 blah. Can you please check in on her? And they said, yeah, sure, we will. Nothing happened. So I called the next day. I was like, hey, they're dealing drugs out of this house, by the way. Like, they're definitely, and they're like, okay, yeah, we'll have a cop drive by there. I call the police on the third day. Hey, there's some bad stuff. Can you do a welfare check for so-and-so at this house? And on the fourth day, Mark called me and was like, come get her. Stop calling the police.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I went down there. I did not call the police to come with me. I went down there and she said, the girl came out and she was like, Randy, I really think you and Mark would get along if you just talk to him. And I told her, I really don't think that's true. I really don't think that's true. And she was like, would you please just tell him why you have a problem with him? And I was like, I really don't think that's a good idea.
How old is this girl?
She's she would have been 18 or 19.
And so you're still able to work with them at that age?
Yeah, it gets into a weird gray area till they turn 21. But because of her limitations, we were doing everything we could to hang on to her and help her. And so I finally was like, if I talk to him, will you get in the car and leave? And she said, yes. I said, okay, fine. And so she has Mark come out and she says, all right, Mr. Dulin, say what you want to say. And I said, what kind of man lets his friends mess around with his girlfriend? And what kind of man lies about it when he says that she's not here when she clearly is? Don't you have any fortitude? I said something else, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. I'm surprised you're not man enough to admit when someone's in your home, something to that effect. And he said, you know what? Forget it. And he just turns around and walks away. And she goes, no, Mark, please talk to him. And he screams at her, calls her a not nice name, and then grabs a chair and throws it at her head.
Golly.
Misses it by this much. Now I'm seeing red. So I start charging at this guy, screaming. I don't know if I don't know what I said. I did repent for it later just in case, but I don't know what I said. But I was screaming and yelling. at this guy, and he starts screaming and yelling at me. But I also was at least somewhat in control. And like I said, I can be really petty in these types of situations. And so he starts coming at me, and I was like, yeah, come on, touch me, and I'm going to call the cops. And he's like, call him. I was like, touch me first, see what happens. I'll call the police. So he's screaming and yelling at me, and he keeps like fake charging me. And he came at me for real, put his hands on me, and I slammed him up against the state vehicle that I brought. Again, I don't know. I said something not nice. Probably wasn't very Christian, whatever it was. And slammed him against the car. And I was like, hey, get in the car. Cause he ran away. And I was like, I don't know what this guy's going to get. We need to get out of here. And we got in the car. And as we were pulling off, he had a chain wrapped around his fist and was like banging on the car as we were running, driving away. And so I called the police. Probably should have done that before, but I called the police and got an incident number. The cops took pictures of my arms and told her, said, they told me I have a year to file charges. And I told her, don't go down there. I won't file charges, and that's how we kept her from going down there. But yeah, so,
I can see why you love the job so much.
But, the other thing that was really cool about that job is I wasn't a social worker, and so I didn't have social worker specific training. And so the only things that I knew to do was to, obviously like study research studies and things like that, but also read the Bible, see how Jesus interacted with people and try and apply that to the job. And then also pray a lot. And at a certain point, like it actually became a part of my job. Like we would schedule time for me to pray, like as part of my job.
No kidding.
Yeah. Like I would meet with my supervisor, cause I had to okay stuff with her, and we would be, discussing different cases. And we would literally have like a thing where I'd be like, I'm going to have to pray about that. And that would go on that list. And then, we would then schedule a meeting for the next day or whatever.
This is a state job, right?
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Man.
And then we would come back and be like, all right, yeah, I prayed about it. This is what I'm thinking. And I always thought she was humoring me, until there was one day we were going to send a kid home. It was going to be the first foster kid I ever sent home. He was one of the sex offenders. But he was going to be the first one I ever sent home. And
what do you mean by sent home?
Like he was going to get to go back home to his parents.
Oh, okay.
Like we had taken him from the house, but he was going to be allowed to go back home with his parents. And it was literally 2 hours before we were going to make it official. And I was praying, and all of a sudden I got a really bad feeling. And so I called my supervisor and was like, hey, where are you? And she was meeting with our attorneys. And I was like, okay, I actually need to talk to them too. So I'm going to come up there. And I drove up to where they were. And I was like, look, Diane, I've been praying. I don't think he can go home. And she's looking at me and she was like, we're sending him home in 2 hours. I was like, we need to push this back a day. I'm telling you, I've been praying, and we need to wait a day. And she was like, okay. And so they postponed it a day. His mom called me and cursed me up one side and down the other. And later that day, I heard from the state's attorney's office that if he had gone into that house, they were going to send police there and arrest him.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so it was like, after that, they were like, yeah, for sure. If you need to pray, go for it, buddy.
Wow, man.
So that was really cool. So I loved that job. I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing that job. I loved it. But my oldest son was born, and a month after he turned, well, I should back up. My wife could tell that something wasn't right with
During
me.
her pregnancy?
No, like after he was born. She could tell something was off.
Was there any indication when you guys were pregnant?
No.
Okay.
No. But she felt like he wasn't developing at the right pace. I'm an idiot. I don't know. I was like, he seems fine to me. And she was like, I just don't think so. And so we decided, I can't remember what the time frame we were going to wait for, but when he was 11 months old, I believe, we got him assessed by infants and toddlers and found out like he was significantly delayed. And so when he turned 2, he wasn't walking yet. He had some words, like he could say his ABCs. He could say animal noises, but like he maybe had like 5 or 6 words total. And a month after he turned 2, I was driving to see a client. My phone was on very low battery, and my wife called, and I answered it, and she said, Nate's having a seizure. And then my phone died.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, so I turned around and rushed into the house, and got there. See, there's an ambulance in front of my house. I'm freaking out. I get out of the car, and Michelle's like, oh, he's fine. He's okay. Everything's okay. He just, he had a seizure. This is and to us at the time, it was like, oh, this is a thing that happens. Kids get seizures sometimes. But then he kept getting them. He eventually he was having sometimes, he would have 2 or 3 a day. So we were seeing doctors for him, like, in regards to the seizures, but then also, he developmentally, he just wasn't doing well. Like he finally learned to walk when he was 26 months. But it was kind of funny. Like he learned to walk a couple of years before he learned to stand. Like he couldn't.
That's strange.
Like he could walk. Like he could go from this place to that place, and he could lean against something.
But he couldn't stand.
But he couldn't stand. Like he didn't have the.
Would he fall over?
Yeah, he would just fall. And he also he didn't have enough wherewithal to tuck his head. So if he did fall, he would bang the back of his head or whatever.
But I'm sorry, he was talking and everything.
Yeah, he had his he wasn't talking normally. It was very slow. But he could do his ABCs. He could do animal noises. And he probably had 5 or 6 words. And he started having the seizures. And they would be short. They wouldn't, they sucked, but it wouldn't be crazy. They wouldn't be crazy.
Right.
So we would go see the doctors, and they would be, sometimes we'd end up in the emergency room because of the seizure, and the doctor would just be like, hey, he's okay. As long as the seizures are less than 45 minutes, it's okay.
Were they giving you any kind of reason for them?
Well, we were working on that. We were Children's Hospital in DC. We were seeing them for neurological stuff, and so they were starting the process of testing him for things, and they did some chromosome testing on him and some imaging and some different things, and what they found out is he has a chromosome disorder that, at least as of when he got tested, he was the only person in the world that had it.
Wow.
I wrote down what it was, but honestly, the numbers and letters aren't going to mean anything to anybody.
Right.
And so they were like, okay, well, we know this. Unfortunately, no one else has this. So we can't really tell you anything.
That's crazy.
Yeah. They did some scans of him, saw that there were portions of his brain that was underdeveloped, like his brain stem was underdeveloped, his corpus callosum was underdeveloped, and some other things going on there.
Now you've talked a little bit about the seizures. Can you tell people how that's manifesting in your house, what you're experiencing?
Yeah. It's.
You're getting to it. Okay. All right.
We're getting there. So we found out that he had the chromosomal disorder, and they were like, well, we know that people that have this particular part of what he has these issues. And we know that people that have this particular part, like they have these issues, but nobody's ever had both. So we don't know what that means if you have both. And so like, I mean, we were having to get everything tested. Like they're like, one of the issues was like with one of the chromosome things was that the people's heart gave out in their 20s, you know? And so they were like, he had to wear like a heart monitor, and, you know, we had to find out like, you know, is his heart okay? And it turned out that it was, or is. And so, yeah, so that was kind of a tough pill to swallow. But you know, it's like my son, I love him, you know, he's like me in a lot of ways. So, you know, whatever. But the seizures were happening, and they were starting to happen more and more. And it was very, very difficult and frustrating because just about anything could set off a seizure. You know, if he got too hot, he would have a seizure. If he got too cold, he would have a seizure. If he drank cow's milk, he would have a seizure. If you,
and this is all trial and error.
yeah,
like
this
you
is
don't
all
know.
us finding out. If you woke him up from a nap, he'll get a seizure. If he looks like he needs to fall asleep and you keep him up, he'll have a seizure. It's just like all these rules that you just, you know, like you have to learn, you know, like, you know, and it feels weird to tell people like, yeah, we would love to come to whatever. We're going to be late because he's still sleeping. And they'd be like, well, can't you wake him up? And it's like, no, he'll have a seizure.
Right.
But then they started to get more intense. But you know, they would be like 20-minute seizures. There's 30-minute seizures. And most of the time his seizures, he has a couple different kinds, but, when he has them, most of the time it looks like somebody just turned off a light switch, where it's like he'll be kind of, the way I think of the seizures is almost like an older computer where, you know, when the computer's about to freeze, you know, it starts to like
Yeah.
stutter and you could almost kind of see him doing that. And then it, like the computer would crash, and that's when the seizure would happen. And he would just kind of, whatever he was doing at that moment, like he would just do it. So he would, you know, his eyes would start looking to the left, and it would just keep going. And, you know, basically his whole body would end up turning to the left. You know, so those would, and then sometimes he would have like the shaking seizures or, stuff like that. These seizures would last, sometimes they last a couple minutes. Sometimes they'd be 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Excuse me.
What are you supposed to do when they're in the midst of having a seizure? Like, do you try to snap them out of it, or?
Well, it's stuff we learned too, but like, you know, you like with him, like you do try and stimulate him, because one of the things that'll happen with Nate, and I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but one of the things that'll happen with Nate is his brain will forget to breathe. Like it'll just stop saying do that. And so you have to kind of like like rub him and, you know, stimulate him. And so that like
That's
something
gotta be scary, man.
yeah, and I remember we were when this was really starting to get serious, my wife and I were helping teach in the Robinwood outreach that Antioch had. So Wayne Brown Sr. was our pastor at that time, you know, like in the,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like in that like daughter work kind
Yeah.
of deal. And I'm really grateful that he was with us at that time, because every time Nate would go to the hospital, he would go, you know, he would come with us to the hospital, and he would sit there with us until it was time, until Nate could go home. He was very, very compassionate, and I think of him as a great man. Not just a great man of God, but a great man.
Absolutely.
I have a lot of respect for Wayne Brown Sr. But I remember one time, like Nate loved hanging out with the kids at Robinwood. Like before Sunday school or after, like we would, you know, get the basketballs out and whatever. And Nate just, you know, he didn't want to play basketball. He didn't want the ball. He just wanted to be with you while you were playing. And the kids would let him. So he would be like running around and they'd just be playing basketball around him, and and I remember one time he had a seizure, like right before Sunday school started at Robinwood, and it was a bad one, so we had to call 911, and the ambulance came and got him, and this was like right at 10 o'clock, and the seizure wouldn't stop. Wayne Brown texted me at 11, was like, "Hey, how's Nate doing?" And it was like, "Well, it's been an hour. He's still seizing."
Wow.
And it would be like, then it was, 11:30. How's he doing? Like, still seizing, that seizure ended up going for almost 3 hours.
Wow, man.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where it's like, before, the doctors would say like, "Hey, he, as long as the seizures aren't more than 45 minutes, it'll be okay." And then they just stopped saying anything,
Right.
And once those seizures got really bad, he stopped talking completely. He still communicates with us now, he's good at expressing what it is that he wants, and stuff, but he doesn't talk at all now.
How old was he when he stopped talking?
It would have been 2.5, 3.
And he's like 12 now?
He's 13. He's 13 years old now. And the seizures, they just got progressively worse and worse. I mean, it was kind of good in the beginning because he could feel them coming on. And so he would like come get us, or he would go sit down. So like the seizures would be okay, or, or he'd be safe. But over time, he started having seizures where, he would be standing and have the seizure, and he would just fall. And thank God he's never hit his head. But he'll just be playing, having a good time, and then just fall, And one of the things that's been really scary is and actually this is kind of the big issue he has now, is when he has seizures, a lot of times he stops breathing for extended periods of time. I remember one time in particular, because with his emergency meds, it's all about timing. And so, when the EMTs come to your house, like they want to know when the seizure was. So part of my process is, get him on his side in a safe position when he's having a seizure, and then pull out the stopwatch on the phone and just hit start. So that way I don't have to remember the time. I just have to look at the stopwatch and say, "Oh, it started 15 minutes ago," or whatever it says on there. And I remember one time in particular, I hit that stopwatch, and he had stopped breathing before I hit that stopwatch. And maybe he was taking tiny breaths, maybe, but he didn't take an actual like breath until almost the 3-minute mark.
Oh man.
And so, like that's terrifying. And,
oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
And the face, earlier I mentioned that, when my dad died, you kind of see the body trying to not die. I've seen my son make that face.
Come on, man.
Dozens of times. I saw it Saturday. And it kind of takes me back to that.
Yeah.
Every time. So he'll have the drop seizures, and he'll stop breathing. And then the big issue with when you stop breathing for so long, you get this buildup of carbon dioxide that you have to get out, and you can't necessarily get it out on your own. And so they have different methods for you for doing that, but sometimes they don't have a choice. They have to intubate. And so Nate's been intubated like 3 or 4 times. And it's a nightmare whenever it happens. Cause when he's intubated, I don't know what the deal is. One doctor said that his, tubes aren't the size you would expect them to be for his age and size. But every single time he's been intubated, they've collapsed one of his lungs. And so, the hope was he was going to be intubated for a couple hours, but now it's going to be a couple days. One time when they went to intubate him, they had the tube down his like throat, and they were about to thread the actual breathing tube down, and he threw up. But then there was just a big opening right down to his lungs, so that
Could have drowned.
so that puke just went right in, like he got pneumonia because stuff got into his lungs.
Man.
And that particular time he was in the hospital for a week, intubated and unconscious, or in a whatever you would call it. They were chemically keeping him asleep.
Medically induced coma.
There we go. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. But that was a nightmare with him because of Nate's chromosomal disorder. His medications don't work on him the way they're supposed to. We met with his neurologist a couple months ago, and we were discussing some adjustments that needed to be made to his meds that he was on. And the neurologist at one point was like, I don't know. I mean, who knows what it's going to do when we do that? I mean, all kinds of weird stuff happens when your son, gets on a new medicine or whatever. And
it's not what you want your doctor to say.
No, well, and one of the things I found out with Nate is that, no offense to neurologists, I'm sure they're smart, but they don't actually know that much relative to what you would hope they would know. And so a lot of it is kind of guesswork. But anyway, because of that, they would give Nate a sedative that, all right, this should keep him knocked out for 4 or 5 hours, and it would last 45 minutes. And then he would wake up, and then first thing he's trying to do is yank that tube out of his throat. And I actually remember one time, this is funny now, it wasn't funny at the time. He had been in the hospital for almost a week, intubated, and the nurses were always incredible. The one nurse came in and she was like, hey, I got to do a bunch of stuff with him. I'm going to be in his room for about an hour. So if you guys want to go, get some lunch, like I'll be here. Like I will physically be in the room, because that was a big thing for us. Someone always has to be in there with him. And so we were like, okay, great. So we went and got lunch, and, down in the cafeteria, and we came back up. And when we came back up, there must have been 20 medical staff in his room. The doors were busted open.
Oh no.
The doctors were, the nurse was like, hey, you guys got to stay here, blah, blah. They're like, buzzers and everything's going off. It's beeping. It's everything. And a guy comes up and says, hi, I'm the chaplain. And we're like, oh God.
Oh my gosh, man.
Turned out he just happened to be there. And basically Nate had woken up while we were at lunch and yanked his tube out, but he couldn't breathe on his own. So he was coding. So he's basically, he was dying. But they saved his life. Got the tube back in.
Man.
I feel like I get faced with the possibility of my son dying a lot more than I feel like I should have to.
Absolutely.
And so it kind of changes everything, but it's kind of weird to say this now. But I can now look back on what happened with like my knee getting hurt, and me showing, dancing in front of everybody and making a fool out of myself and looking like an idiot. And I can look back to the things that happened with my dad, and I look at those things now and I'm like, oh, like God was preparing me to be able to take care of this guy, cause like, I love being his dad. Like, I can't imagine, he has horrible sleep problems. Like he woke up at 1:30 in the morning, Sunday, and stayed up, and I was up with him. And then he woke up at 11:30 last night and was up for several hours in the middle of the night. And I had to be up with him. And, I don't enjoy it, but I love it, Like
That's amazing, man.
I love being able to take care of him. You know, it's part of his issues with, you know, the chromosome stuff, but like he has sleep problems. So he, you know, every couple of months he'll just go through a cycle where he's waking up somewhere between 1 and 4 every day, and just got to deal with it, you know. But it, you know, because of dealing, you know, that feeling of, I'm here to serve somebody else, like that mindset just fits perfectly for having to deal with, or take care of a kid like him. Because I don't mind, you know, like I'm happy to do it. I mean, you know, I'm happy to stay up all night at the hospital, you know, to make sure he's okay. You know, I hate it, but I love it, you know.
I have so many questions, but they're questions that I would ask God if I were you. So I'm
You can, you can ask him. I don't
I'm
care.
not gonna like. I don't really. It's just. It's mind. It boggles my mind to think that you deal with that on a daily basis, and you know, I mean, I've talked about some of the things that I've been through, but you know, most of my stuff is like it's a few weeks or maybe a few months, and then it kind of blows over, and life sort of resumes you know, what we call normal, but like that is your normal. Like
Yeah.
it's not like anyone else's normal that I know.
Yeah, we're always on. I mean, now I don't even feel it. Like when we first started, like you felt like you're always on edge because you're always waiting for it. I mean, on Friday and Saturday, I caught him. You know, like he was having a seizure, and I was able to get him in time and catch him before he fell. And you know, and that's happened many times. There's been times where like I'm sure it looked funny, but like I literally, he was starting to fall and I just dove on the floor so he would fall on me and not, you know,
Right.
not the ground.
But you work too, right?
Yeah. And then actually, you know, that was another thing that was really kind of cool interest. I don't know. I loved working at social services, but that required an incredible amount of time, dealing with those kids. And I loved every minute of it. But I couldn't take care of them and take care of Nate. So I guess I realized the other day, it was like, it wasn't that long. It's like, I think 13 months after he started having seizures, I quit social services and started my own business, you know, cutting grass. And one of the things that I love about that is I'm in complete control of my schedule. So,
Right.
you know, when he has a seizure, I can rush home. You know, when I worked at social services, he was having so many that I would, you know, Michelle would call and be like, "Hey, he's having a seizure." And I would run into my supervisor's office and be like, "Hey, my son's having a seizure. I got to run home." And they'd be like, "Isn't your wife going to be there?"
Right.
And it's like, "Yeah. And me." I was like, "But do you need to?" And it's like, yes.
Yeah.
They were kind of crazy question. You can tell you don't have kids, you know? And so I started working for myself, which allowed me to be the parent that I want to be,
Right.
that I can be there for him when I need to be. Because one of the other things that is, we found out a couple of years into it is, because we didn't even know this was a thing at first, is sometimes when he comes out of a seizure, he's paralyzed. Usually it'll be one or two limbs. So a lot of times when he comes out of a seizure, like his right arm won't work, or his right arm and leg won't work. And usually they come back within a couple hours, but sometimes it's a couple days. And so we went, you know, I needed something to motivate me to be healthier. And the thing that really motivated me was I need to be able to pick him up for as long as he's alive, you know? And
Right.
so when I don't lift weights. I don't, go to the gym and do like dumbbells and barbells and stuff. What my workouts are is really heavy kettlebells and sandbags. And
Okay.
my big workout is, taking a 200-pound sandbag, throwing it on my shoulder and just walking around my yard for 10 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
And because I measured out like what was the longest distance from my car that I typically ever was. And it was about the length of a football field. And so I was like, okay, well, that's what I need to be able to do. And I've had to do it many times where he's had a seizure or something and he can't walk. And so I can pick him up and I can carry him like a baby, basically, just literally like a baby, like one arm under him and one arm kind of
Right.
around his back. And, because he, sometimes when he comes out of these seizures, he can't do anything on his own.
Right.
And that was the other thing is because I run my own business and it's a service business, I was able to set my business up so it just is completely around his school. So Nate is he's not the most medically fragile kid at his school, but he's in the nurse's office more than anyone else. Like we're on first name basis with the school nurse, like when we see her, like we're catching up on what she's doing over the summer, and and all, I mean,
So is it like a special needs school?
Yeah. He's been going to the same special school since he was 3.
And he communicates and everything?
Sort of. So like if he's thirsty, he'll bring a cup. If he's hungry, he'll give you a plate or something. If he wants to play with a toy, or if there's something wrong with the toy or whatever, like he'll bring it to you and he can kind of communicate to you in that way. And it actually can be kind of funny because the corpus callosum is what in his brain, your brain is what kind of controls what the left and right hemispheres of your brain communicating with each other, and his is underdeveloped. And so like a funny thing that happens with him is he'll be walking up to you and he'll have like, I don't know, like he'll have his drink in one hand and he'll have his empty cup in one hand and a toy in the other. And he'll hand you the toy and you can see on his face, he's like, no. And so he pulls it back and then he's no, he's wanting to hand you the empty cup because he wants something to drink.
Right.
But his brain, like wires they're not connecting right. And so he keeps handing you the wrong thing. Yeah, I mean, and eventually he works it out, but it's always kind of funny when that happens.
Like what is this? Is this having like, does this put a strain on your marriage or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, sure, but we're really committed to each other and we're committed to him. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Like there's single parents at that school that he goes to, and I do not know. I don't know how single parents do it. Whenever I see a single like mom or something, if we're talking and that fact comes up, I'm like, I got a lot of respect for you that you've been able to keep that person alive.
Absolutely.
I don't know how you do that by yourself.
Yeah.
So we work really good as a team. It's pretty cool, especially like in emergency situations, like seeing how we work together. Like I'm really good in the immediate emergency, like when we have to call the EMTs and we need to work with them on that kind of thing. I'm really good at that. Once things have calmed down and we need things like the appropriate bed for someone with special needs, like that's when Michelle tags in because she's great at she mama bear is a thing and you don't want to get in her way,
Right.
and so we're really good at helping each other. We're like, I'm really good where she's weaker and she's really good where I'm weaker, or if something requires anger, I can't do it. I've been kicked out of the hospitals twice, because when I get angry, apparently it looks violent. But Michelle can be way more angry, and it's just fine,
Right.
And so we work really good together. But we're also an anomaly because, families with special needs, they get divorced. Like
Yeah.
that's just how that goes.
Right. What kind of like? What about your walk with God? Like, how has this affected your walk with God? I mean, you talked about early in your life how God's main answer to you for all your prayers were, "Do you trust me?" So, how has that been working out for you?
I would say it's matured. I mean, it went down, 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 and then it started going back up. Because I would say when I was leading the children's ministry that was traveling around, we got so good at it that we really didn't need to prepare. We worked so well together. We had such good chemistry with each other. We could just kind of show up and just kind of make it up as we went, and it would be amazing. And so my relationship with God really started to struggle. I should say it became very performative. I got really good at making it look like I was doing good. Like I knew how to do all the good apostolic things, and I know when to stand up, I know when to clap, I know when to say amen.
Right.
I know when to nod my head, and I know when to be quiet because somebody's about to prophesy. I know how to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so it became very performative. I always think this is funny, and I don't know if people will get this reference, but on the first Casting Crowns album, they have a song, I think it's the first one, they have a song called Stained Glass Masquerade. And I would hear that song and I'd be like, this is about me, where it was just like, it's basically just pretending like everything's fine, and, because I'm a leader, or whatever, like I can't, be honest or whatever, and about how I'm really feeling. And I mean, I would talk to the person that was in leadership above me. And I would, tell him that like, I'm not doing good. I would, just tell him like, I'm kind of dealing with some bitterness, just being
right.
And he would just be like, well, you should pray about that. And they're like, well, I have been, it's not working. And it was becoming a much, it was, I was becoming very religious. I'll put it that way. I was a really good Christian. When I was a kid and when I was a teenager, I had a relationship with Jesus, and, between my dad dying and then, dealing with like the stuff with my son and just everything, I was becoming a lot more of a good religious Christian where like I knew how to do all the stuff. But on the inside, it was just like, I don't even know why I'm coming here.
Right.
And I remember, I think I was around 30. Bishop Wright had gone to, I think, Singapore. It'd be so funny if he heard this part. But he went to Singapore, and I don't know what all happened in Singapore, but he came back fired up. Like that guy's on fire for God already, but like, I don't know what happened in Singapore, but it was just on another level when he came back, and he was fired up and he was saying all kinds of stuff. And one of the things he said was like, like, we're here to serve God, blah, blah. And then he said, and if you don't want to be here, then just don't come, don't be here, or something to that effect. And I was like, okay, all right, well, you say so. And I just stopped coming. I was really sad about what was going on with my son. And, it's really, really hard to go to church, like a traditional church with a special needs person.
Absolutely.
Because people can have good intentions and they can mean well, and it doesn't help. When Nate, there's no keeping him quiet. Like a lot of, like we like to brag that our son doesn't use technology in church.
Right.
He sits there and pays attention. And, the reason is because he's going to be loud no matter what. So if we gave him technology, he's going to be loud. If we don't, he's going to be loud. So might as well have him pay attention.
Right.
But when they're really loud, people turn and look, and, most people, they're turning and smiling like, oh, there's Nate, it doesn't feel good, and some people are turning around and being like, you need to keep your kid quiet. And there's 100 people that are turning around and smiling, and there's 2 people. I remember them. I know who they are. There's 2 people that turned around and gave that look that like, shut your kid up. And those 2 people are enough reason to just not come.
Right.
It's just because, it's mortifying. Like
I can imagine.
And so, I was just like, you know what? Yeah, fine. I'm not coming. And so I think I may have gone to church once in a 6-month time frame. Nobody ever really said anything to me about it. I was like, oh, I guess I was doing a good job hiding in the back. Nobody noticed I'm going. But I did. I went once or twice, and like actually one time I went, and Dan Trombley walked up behind me and just said like, "Hey, I'm praying for you," and I was like, "Thanks." Good for you. Yeah. And then Sean Whaley, he asked me if I would, come talk to him in his office, and I did, and he was like, "Hey, why aren't you coming to church anymore?" And I told him the Bishop in Singapore story, and he started laughing, and he was like, I don't know if that's exactly what he meant. I said, well, he seemed pretty serious when he said it. And so, and he was like, well, maybe try coming like once a month or something, just maybe, try. And I can't remember when exactly I started going back, but that was kind of, and I'm not saying it was a good thing that I stopped going to church, but what, did happen is I was gone, I was gone for 6 months. So, I wasn't doing anything leadership wise at that point. I wasn't leading the kids ministry anymore because I had to stop because, it was going on with Nate. And so I wasn't in front of anybody anymore. I was already sitting in the back. So, nobody knew if I stood up and worshiped or not. And so when I stopped coming and nobody really noticed. So I was like, okay, well, I've joined the ranks of Antioch's disappointments. So that's good. So I decided, I was like, well, I'm not coming back unless I want to, and so, slowly every once, I would want to come back. And so I would go. And now, I feel like the relationship I have with God is a lot more genuine. I am not comfortable calling myself a Christian anymore. And this is me honestly, it's probably just me being silly and overanalyzing stuff. But like when I read the Bible, Christian was a title that was put on people. Like that was something that the secular people looked at the followers of Jesus and were like, those are Christ-like people. Those are Christians.
Right.
And and it's just me. I don't care what anybody else does, but I started thinking, I'm not comfortable calling myself a Christian because I don't know how Christ-like I am. And I'm not even comfortable calling myself a disciple because if I'm a disciple, I'm definitely not a good one, but I'm definitely a follower. I'll definitely do that. And so I stopped being a Christian. I stopped being a good religious man, and now I'm a follower. of Jesus. And so I go to church every Sunday, and it's because I want to. Like I couldn't tell you the last time I went to church because I went and didn't want to. Like every time I go, it's because I actually do want to. And now I have a relationship with God that's a lot more mature. You know, like I used to ask God all the time, like, you know, like, why? Like, what's your problem? Like, why would you do that? Why would we do this? This makes no sense to me. And I don't know if this is a cop out or not, but it's how I choose to go through life is, I don't think, I think God could sit me down like you and I are sitting right now, and he could put up a whiteboard and he could say, all right, I'm going to explain to you why your dad died. I'm going to explain to you why you got embarrassed in front of the whole church. I'm going to explain to you why this stuff's going on with your son. So here it all is. And I think if God did that, I would look at him and be like, you definitely could have done that a different way.
Randy, I have thought about that very scenario so many times. I couldn't agree with you more. It's like if I told you why, you would say, it's like God saying to me, if I told you why, you would say to me, well, why couldn't you just done it this way?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like I could have, I mean, I don't care what he said.
True.
Like I definitely would be like, nope, there's definitely what you could have done this instead. That would have worked out great for me.
Yep.
And so
but the thing about it is that's you and me just looking at the scenario of our life.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking at the whole thing, and he's using these things in our lives, not just for us, but for somebody over here, you know, that we don't even know about.
Yeah. And
I mean, that's sort of how I make it feel okay to me, I guess.
And you know, and that doesn't make me feel any better. So what where I've come to, and I don't know if this is maturity or me just phoning it in or, you know, or copping out, I don't know. But, you know, the scripture says something about like his ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. And if I look at like my 4-year-old that I have, if I tried to teach him, I don't know, like quantum mechanics or something, like it's impossible. I'm not going to be able to teach a 4-year-old that.
Right.
I'm not even going to be able to understand it, I don't think. And so what I've decided is that I'm not going to be able to understand why. There is nothing, well, he's God, so he could do anything, but I don't think there's anything God could do that would make it make sense to my human mind. So what I have to do is trust that he's God, he knows what he's doing, and leave it there.
And that's what he's been saying to you your entire life.
Yeah. And so that's where I'm at, you know.
That's amazing.
I don't understand, you know, the stuff with my son, you know, like I don't understand why, you know, when I go to bed every night, he has to sleep in the same room with us because he has seizures at night. And like I say, stops breathing and it's the whole thing. Every night before I go to bed, he goes to sleep before I do. And I lay down there and I just lay down there completely quiet and I listen to his breathing and I acclimate myself to the tempo of his breath. And then I go to sleep. But if his breathing ever changes, like if the tempo of his breathing ever changes, it'll wake me up. And so I can check on him and make sure he's okay. And I mean, that's a crazy way to have to live. I mean, that feels excessive to me. But,
yeah, that's rough, man.
But I don't know why I have to deal with that, but God knows. And I trust him. You know, I wish I had some kind of a revelation or, you know, like I understand, but I don't think I'm going to understand. So I just have to trust that my Heavenly Father knows stuff that I don't and go from there.
The one thing I will say is that and you may disagree with me, but I have come to a place in my life where I find it something of a privilege to have the opportunity to, and maybe I'm just making myself feel better again, but I take it as a privilege to be able to read certain verses in the Bible, and they're no longer just cool sayings that I hang on the wall. Like, I read certain verses in the Bible and I have to believe that it's true. You know what I mean? Like, I have no choice. Like, this verse has to be true. Otherwise, nothing else
Yeah.
works in my life, you know?
Yeah.
And I take that as a privilege that I am able to live that verse. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you obviously live that, whether you think about it or not.
Yeah. I've had that conversation about, I'm just trusting that he understands, and I'm willing to leave it there. I've told other people that, and you can tell generally people don't really like that. And because it's honestly, it's kind of a weak sounding thing, and it's kind of a cop out sounding thing. But I think it's just an acknowledgement of how weak I actually am, and how much I do need a savior. Like, I live a life that makes no sense to me. And so if I didn't have a God that I could lean on, I don't know what I would do. I mean, I think the craziest thing is an arrogant Christian. Like, I know some people can be a little high and mighty with, like they're followers of Jesus. And so, we know the right way and all this stuff. And, you need to be more like me or whatever. And that to me is such a crazy way of looking at the Bible and Jesus, because the reality is, when somebody says like, hey, religion's a crutch for weak people, to my mind, I'm like, yeah, that's what we are. We're here because we're sinners in need of a savior. We're human beings that we should be human beings that realized we can't do this on our own, and, maybe people that don't go through, maybe you have to go through harder stuff to come to that realization, but like, no one's any better or worse than anybody else. I mean, my doubting God will send me to hell just as fast as, I don't know, your drug problem or whatever.
Right.
I mean, there's not a real big difference there.
It's powerful, man.
And,
I mean, can you imagine living your life without God?
no,
I know, man. I don't know how I would even get up in the morning.
yeah. I mean, I'm assuming alcohol would be involved, but like, based on family history, I don't know if that'd be a good thing. But yeah, I don't know. There's a thing that I there's no way I made this up. So I don't know where it came from, but it's something that I like to hang on to. And I like to tell other special needs parents or other people that are going through hard stuff is that, whatever this hard thing you're going through, imagine it's 100 pounds. It's 100-pound weight, and you're going to have to carry that 100-pound weight. And right now, you've never had to carry 100 pounds before. So it is really heavy, and I hate to tell you, but 100 pounds never gets lighter. It'll always be 100 pounds. But the amazing thing is that you will get stronger, and so as tough as things can seem, as dark as things can seem, even if it doesn't get better, you will be stronger and able to handle things better.
That's awesome, man.
I wish I knew where I got that from.
Maybe God just dropped it in.
I mean, maybe. I'd love to take credit for it because I do actually think I made it up. But but I like to act like I'm humble and say like I heard it somewhere.
Oh, well.
I'm sorry. I know we're wrapping up. I just want to tell you one thing. When I worked in Sunday school, especially after I worked in foster care, I would I would be in some crazy situations and stuff, and like I would put my neck out online for some kid, and I'd be like, man, that's just like what Jesus does for us. And so I would go to Sunday school, and I didn't want to sound arrogant, so I would just say, I would tell them the story of something I did, but I just wouldn't say it was me, and I'd be like, and that's just like Jesus.
Nice, man. Well, I guess we could land the plane at this point. Yeah. One thing I always like to ask people, and you kind of already went there a little bit, but there's hopefully many different people listening, and maybe people that have no experience with God, or people that have walked away from God and want to get back. And so I always like to ask my witness, what advice would you give someone who wants a deeper walk with God, or wants to know God and never has had any experience with him, or that they walked away and they want to come back? What advice would you give to them if they're just about to make that decision?
So if you're wanting to get closer to God, just start talking. Just start talking. I mean, when I'm driving in my truck and I'm overwhelmed, when I pray, it feels weird to call it a prayer because I'm just talking, and I'm talking to God. And so just start talking to him, and ask him to lead you where to go. And when something pops in your head, that's definitely not something you would have thought of, go that way, And then if you're somebody that's like left and you don't want to come back because, you're afraid people are going to judge you or think bad about you. I hate to tell you, dude, but nobody's thinking about you. Anybody that's thinking about you, they're already talking to you. And I'm joking around, but I've been going to this particular church for 38 years. And I've seen a lot of people come back, and I have never once seen somebody come back and them being like, ha, look at you.
Right.
Walking away didn't work around, did it?
Right.
No, it's never been like that.
It's true.
It's always been welcome home. Really glad you're here now. And so, it was really weird when I came back after 6 months. I felt a little uncomfortable, but nobody said anything.
Right.
So you'll be, just come back.
That's awesome.
It's okay.
And I'm trying to think about how to say this. When you look back at your life, obviously you've already talked about how and we are trying to land it, but I was thinking about this earlier. You already talked about how you don't necessarily ask God why. But I want to know, do you look back on your life and can you see God's hand on your life and how he's directed you through certain things that it actually does make sense now?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, I look back at my life and I feel like it was such a corny thing because this literally applies to everyone in the world. But I feel like every moment in my life has led me to this moment.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, yeah, no, I do feel that way. I've already said, I feel like it could have gone a different way, but yeah, now I'm grateful that thing happened to me where I was, dancing around in front of everybody and then went and got surgery right after. I'm grateful that happened because now I really don't care what you think, which being a special needs parent is really,
absolutely,
really, that's a really useful thing to have. A lot of special needs parents have there's a different term for arresting don't talk to me face.
Right.
About my kid. There's another term for it, but this is a Christian podcast, I think. So, and so I'm really grateful for that. Like, I don't care now, and like, I'm really grateful that I went through the stuff with my dad, because I kind of got a peek into what traumatic stuff was, ahead of me. Because as horrible as the stuff I went through with my dad was, it's nothing compared to what I've gone through with my son.
And I mean, I guess looking at reality, the outlook is this is your life always.
Yeah. I mean, now I see people that I'm trying to get, in as good a physical condition as I can get into. And the conversation I have with all the professionals that I see is I need to be able to change diapers when I'm 80.
Right.
So when I'm 80, I need to be able to change a 55-year-old's diaper.
Right.
So let's make this happen. And so, even like going to college, and learning about child development, like the stuff I learned in college, I use with my son every day, or like the case management skills I learned working in the foster care system, I have to use all the time. And like the building a network of partners to work with a foster kid, I do that with my son now, where like the professionals that are involved in my son's life, it's not his teacher, his doctor, or the bus lady. It's, these are all partners. These are all people I work together with. So like we have close relationships with his teachers, the aides, the principal at his school. I talk to them weekly at a minimum. Even his pharmacist, I'm on a first name basis with his pharmacist. Like just the other day, I went in to pick up some of his meds, and she said, "Hey, I saw that it was time to, reorder his, emergency, his rescue meds. So I just went ahead and ordered it. So here you go." And it was because she's a partner in caring for him, like I didn't even have to ask her to refill his emergency meds. She just went ahead and did it.
Wow.
Because he's front of mind, know? And so, I've been really fortunate to have had that experience so that I'm able to then apply those kinds of things to my son. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing to say, but like almost every EMT in Anne Arundel County knows my son.
No kidding.
Things are actually a lot better now. Like we used to go to the emergency room by ambulance, usually like once a month, sometimes twice a month, for years. And now when he hit puberty, all of a sudden his maintenance meds stopped working, but the rescue meds work perfectly.
Oh, interesting.
So he does have, his seizures are not controlled by any stretch of the imagination. But when he has them, we can give him the rescue med and we know he's going to be okay. Just, got to make sure to catch him. Yeah.
Right.
So it's like a blessing and a curse. Cause like, I remember the first time an EMT came into our house and was like, yeah, we know the deal. We brought the special medicine that we're, blah, blah, blah. Or like when, when we're driving to the emergency room, they would say like, 9-year-old male seizure, blah, blah, blah. And we get there and, Dr. Strawmanus is like, I knew it was you. We're all ready.
Wow. That's wild, man.
Yeah. So, it's nice knowing that there's people that know him and care that much about him and are willing to work, but it's also, you don't like it when the, EMT knows your son.
Yeah. Right. No doubt. Well, Randy, man, I really appreciate, we've been going for quite some time at this point, and I really appreciate you being willing to open up this way, man. You still doing your YouTube channel?
Yeah. And by the way, you're not going to have to pay me for this appearance, so don't worry about it.
I was going to give you a chance to at least plug your channel, though, if you wanted to.
Yeah. If you just type in my name, Randy Dulin, I have a YouTube channel where most of it is just helping out lawn care guys. When I started my
I want to say if you're a small business owner, I think there's a lot of advice that you give that could be applicable to small business owners in general.
Yeah, when I started my business, Nick Carlson, inventor of the mulch mate, he was really helpful to me. I was talking to him almost every day because I didn't know what to do, because I had no business starting a business. It's one of the reasons why I know there is a God, because I've been hired,
Yeah.
And so I wanted to pay that forward to help other people, but nobody ever takes me up on it. So I was like, well, I'll just give it away on YouTube, and if somebody finds it helpful, perfect. But yeah, it's a good mix of repair videos, talking about lawn care stuff, some Jesus stuff. You want to hear my opinions on tithing, you'll find it there. Yeah.
People are going to flood it now.
Yeah.
Lots of good anecdotes and stories, though. It's pretty entertaining.
Yeah. So I haven't been posting on it as much recently. Like this is kind of embarrassing, but last year I had pretty much decided, I was like, I'm pretty much done. I'll post if I feel like it, but I don't really care. And so I had stopped posting on the channel, and then this company Jobber, they called me and they were like, hey, we'll pay you to be an influencer for us. And I was like, well, I guess I'm back on YouTube then.
And you also have a new venture on Instagram, right?
Yeah. So that probably would end up on YouTube too. But
you got some great stuff on there.
Yeah, I'm trying. Because my son has a lot of sleep issues, I end up, up really early in the morning, and we would just be sitting there watching YouTube videos or cartoons or whatever. And I was like, I need to do something to be more constructive. And so I just started whittling, and, I turned into a whole thing. So now I actually, and actually when I started doing it, I realized I was like, this is probably something I could do when I'm old. So I figure if I give it 30 years, I'll be like a master woodworker.
You'll be amazing.
And I can just live off of that and, just take care of him while I'm, working on stuff.
Right.
So hand carved by Randy.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right.
And it's all stuff that's done with hand tools. Like all the bowls and stuff are just done with hand tools. So no power tools, no electricity. It's all done the old school way with hatchets and knives.
Nice. Cool. Well, we'll go ahead and bring it to a close at this point. Anything else you wanted to say before we close out?
No, thanks for having me, man. Hopefully it was at least kind of interesting.
Well, it's been very interesting, and in spite of the content, I had a good time. So thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
And with that, Randy has stepped down from the stand. Randy, thank you again for that honest and genuine testimony. Now, earlier in the episode, before we started the testimony, I mentioned Gideon. If you follow the story of Gideon, you'll find that God stripped Gideon and his forces down to the absolute bare minimum before he went into battle and gained victory. And as you listen to Randy's testimony, you probably thought, my Lord, man, how do you keep going? I know I did. Sometimes it seems like God is stripping us down to the bare minimum as we face these tribulations in life. One of the most meaningful things in a relationship is trust. Maybe one of the most precious things we can give in a relationship is trust. I believe that is one of the things God desires from us the most. So he sends us into situations with barely enough, which forces us to trust him. And that was really the whole point. When we look back over the trials and the battles, we are able to know that the only way we made it was because God carried us through. He doesn't want you to do this alone. He wants to be your source of strength. Now, before I close, I want to mention something else. During Randy's testimony, we mentioned Antioch West. Well, recently, the Witness podcast was gifted a brand new top-of-the-line laptop. And the word is that it was a group of people from Antioch West that got together and gifted that to me. I want you to know that I was completely blown away, and I wanted to take a moment to publicly say thank you to whoever that was. I don't know who it is, so anyway, this laptop is going to give me the opportunity to keep churning out more and better content. So again, thank you very much. And thank all of you for listening, liking, and subscribing. We are making an impact, and that is thanks to all of you. As you know, you can follow us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, make sure you follow us on Instagram, where I post additional pictures, reels, and news concerning the podcast. And I'll leave a link to our Instagram page in the show description. I will also leave links to Randy's Instagram page and YouTube channel, so make sure you check those out. Well, I think that's it. So until next time, we are adjourned.